Chapter 10:23. Chu Yang had already figured out the man's identity from the crowd's discussion. Gong Sun Long's third brother, Gong Sun Ing. I didn't expect that I would die in their hands before I could even avenge my brother's arm. At this moment, Chu Yang was filled with unwillingness. His brother, Chu Fei, had his arm chopped off by Gong Sun Liang, and his cultivation was crippled. The old grudge had been avenged, but a new grudge had been born. Unfortunately, he was still too weak. He was afraid that he would not be able to rest in peace today. Gong Sun Ing led Gong Sun Liang to Chu Yang and stared coldly at Chu Yang. "You're the wild dog, Chu Yang. You're really retarded." Chu Yang sneered. "If you're not an idiot, you wouldn't have asked such a question." But Gong Sun Ying's big hand lashed out towards Chu Yang. It was like a whip hitting the air, and the air crackled incessantly. At the same time, when the hand lashed out, it immediately imprisoned the space around Chu Yang. Controlling the heavens and the earth, the flexible movement of a soul amalgamation realm's domain, imprisoning space and time. Chu Yang had already encountered this before, but he couldn't do anything to him. He was now a level 6 array master, and his understanding of the heavens and the earth was definitely not inferior to a soul amalgamation realm. Whoosh! Chu Yang's body shook, and he immediately broke through the imprisonment. He took a step back and immediately dodged the attack. Gong Sun Liang's slap hit the air, and he couldn't help but squint his eyes. "You managed to block it with your understanding of the heavens and the earth? Wild dog, you do have some skills, so I'll forgive your arrogant words just now." "Humph," Chu Yang sneered. "Why are you pretending to be a big wolf in front of me? If I could borrow a year or so from the heavens, you wouldn't even be able to compare to an ant in front of me. It's a pity that a genius like me is going to die prematurely. It seems that the heavens are jealous of me. It's a pity that a genius like me is going to die young. It seems that I'm really envied by the heavens." When Shangguan Lan heard Chu Yang's words, she couldn't help but smile. Then she was even more certain in her heart. "Brother Yang, you're really not a decent person. You can even say such things now. Wild dog, you think too highly of yourself." Gong Sun Ing sneered and then said to Gong Sun Liang, "Go and slaughter this wild dog for me, and wash away the humiliation. If you can't do it, you don't need to come back alive to see me." "It's third young master." Gong Sun Liang sneered and approached Chu Yang. "Wild dog, I'll let you know what it means to beg for death." Chu Yang didn't even look at him. He looked straight at Gong Sun Ing. "You're already trash enough. Why send in even more trash? Do you dare to fight me at the same level? If we fight at the same level, I can deal with you with just one finger." "Wild dog, how dare you!" As soon as Chu Yang finished speaking, Gong Sun Liang roared and came directly in front of Chu Yang. He stared at Chu Yang and said, "Wild dog, who are you? You're just a dog. Do you have the right to talk to third young master?" "What? Gong Sun Liang, didn't I teach you a lesson before?" Chu Yang's killing intent was brewing in his heart. He was planning to drag 4 or 5 people down with him today. "Teach me a lesson?" Gong Sun Liang sneered. "Wild dog, do you think you're worthy? I just didn't succeed in teaching you a lesson. Eastern Wilderness. I don't need you to deal with people of this level. I'm enough." Although Hao Haodong was only at the peak of the 9th level of the soul reincarnation realm, he actually stood out and faced Gong Sun Liang. "Gong Sun Liang, I'm your opponent." "You're not worthy, Pa." Just as he opened his mouth to speak, Gong Sun Liang slapped him across the face with lightning speed, sending him flying. Instantly, half of Hao Haodong's face swelled up. His blood and teeth were all sent flying. Looking at Hao Haodong, who was sent flying, Gong Sun Liang spat on him. "Who do you think you are? You're worse than a dog. Do you think you're worthy to be my opponent? Why don't you take a look at yourself first?" Chu Yang could have stopped him, but he chose to believe Hao Haodong in the end. The result was very cruel. The gap between them was too big. Hao Haodong and the others weren't just a little bit weaker than the children of the aristocratic families in the East Continent. Chu Yang looked at Gongsun Liang, who was lying on the ground. His heart was heavy. Without strength, everything would be in vain. Right now, he could only fight against people at the 4th or 5th level of the spirit realm. The 6th level was probably his limit. After he passed the lightning calamity, his two martial souls had created a world, allowing him to reach the peak of the soul reincarnation realm. However, his physical strength didn't increase and was still at 200 dragon power. He already understood the reason behind it, but he didn't have the time to train it yet. He went forward to help Hao Haodong up. The killing intent in his eyes was getting stronger. Eastern Wilderness. I've made a fool of myself. Hao Haodong was ashamed and couldn't raise his head. Don't worry. If you don't die today, you can come back. With such a backbone, there's nothing you can't do. Chu Yang looked at Gongsun Liang and said with an icy tone, "No one can hit my brother for nothing. Gongsun Liang, I'll return the slap you gave him 10 times over." Chapter 10:24. Return it tenfold? What right do you have to return it? What I just said to that trash is also applicable to you. Wild dog, why don't you take a piss and take a look at yourself first? When Gong Sunliang saw the anger on Chu Yang's face, his ferocious expression disappeared. He wanted to properly deal with Chu Yang. To him, this was the best thing that could happen. Wild dog, it's too easy to kill you. I'll give you a chance to live. Kneel down and kowtow to me 3 times and 9 times. Then, pass through my crotch. Today, I'll only use my dirty hands to beat up a wild dog like you, but I won't eat your dog meat. Gong Sunliang teased as he looked at Chu Yang. He was like a cat looking at a mouse. He was toying with him. Ha ha! Everyone from the East Continent immediately laughed. They could see that even if Chu Yang kowtowed and passed through his crotch, Gong Sunliang wouldn't let him go. Even if he let him go, he would make Chu Yang beg for death. Gong Sunliang quietly watched all of this. However, he didn't have any interest. His eyes were filled with disdain. This was purely a waste of his time. Dongfang Che, a law phase realm expert, stood in the air with his hands behind his back and smiled. Chu Yang's eyes drifted. The ridicule seemed to have come from the heavens. When he heard it, he felt that it was extremely distant and ethereal. He was thinking about dying. He felt that he was a failure. He clearly possessed the Destiny Twins, but he actually fell into such a situation. When he came to the Sky Courtyard, he didn't even have the chance to see his fiancée before he was about to die. How can I die like this? In an instant, the unwillingness in Chu Yang's heart reached its peak. Gong Sunliang's cultivation is at the 5th level of the spirit realm. It shouldn't be a problem for me to kill him. I can also confirm Gong Sunliang's cultivation. It's much lower than I imagined. He's only at the 3rd level of the soul fusion realm. Dongfang Che's Dharma phase cultivation. Chu Yang quickly scanned through all the enemies in his mind, then began thinking and deducing quickly. Then, he sighed in his mind, if I could set up a magic formation seal, with the power of a level 6 magic formation master, both Gong Sun Liang and Gong Sun Ing would have to die. Who knows, I might even be able to rely on the formation and the divine devil martial spirit to fight with this Dongfang Che and escape. Unfortunately, how would they give me the time to set up the formation? Setting up a spirit formation required time. With so many people watching, even if he wanted to set up a spirit formation silently, it would be impossible. He would be discovered at the first moment. Ha! But suddenly, following the deduction of the divine demon martial spirit, Dongfang Bai burst out laughing. He clenched his fists as if he had caught something. He opened his mouth and said coldly, "Two-legged maggot, imitating a dog barking in my ear, you really don't know how to write the word death." As soon as these words came out, not only the parrot, but even Cui Xinho, Hao Haodong, and the other two couldn't help but tremble. Chu Yang was angry. The murderous aura on his body was too terrifying. But they couldn't think of what method Chu Yang could use to deal with Gong Sun Liang, Gong Sun Ing, and the countless people in the East Continent. What did you say? Gong Sun Liang almost thought that he had misheard. In such a situation, the wild dog was still so arrogant. Then, his face turned as red as a pig's liver. With a boom, a strong storm brewed behind him. Are you deaf? Two-legged maggot, I said that you don't know how to write the word death. Do you hear me now? Chapter 1025. Wild dog, you're courting death. Gong Sunliang was enraged. With a hideous expression, he immediately attacked. He opened his hand and formed a claw with his fingers. Spiritual energy rose from his hand and turned into a cloud. This claw was like an evil dragon descending from the clouds and preying on all living beings. An evil dragon slaughtering all living beings. With this claw, spiritual energy gathered and enveloped the surroundings. The force emitted out caused the stone floor beneath his feet to silently crack. Gong Sunliang showed no mercy with this claw. His killing intent was deep and he wanted to kill Chu Yang. Amit Ba. Chu Yang didn't even look at him and suddenly attacked. Immediately, a Buddhist chant resounded and a golden light burst out from his body. 8 arms appeared behind his back like a peacock spreading its tail. It was beautiful and holy. It was as if a Buddha had killed an evil dragon and saved all living beings. The moment the two came into contact, Chu Yang's spiritual aura came into contact with Gong Sunliang's spiritual aura. A series of crackling sounds rang out, and Gong Sunliang's spiritual aura was directly shaken and dispersed like a hot knife through butter. The clouds disappeared, and the 5 fingers that were reaching down were all fractured. Subsequently, everyone saw the 8 spiritual energy arms behind Chu Yang waving, as if they were forming a seal. The spiritual energy formed a ball of light. The ball of light rotated at a high speed. With a whoosh, it flew out and smashed onto Gong Sunliang's body, causing all of his protective spiritual energy to explode. Ah! Gong Sunliang let out a miserable shriek as he was sent flying. With a bang, his clothes were set ablaze as he fell onto the ground. He struggled to extinguish the flames on his body, but in an instant, he was naked again. Suddenly, he felt his entire body light up. Light up again, wah-ha! The parrot instantly burst into laughter. However, only the parrot was able to laugh. This was because only the parrot knew how heaven-defying Chu Yang was. It was natural for a mere spirit stage 5th level to not be Chu Yang's opponent. The rest of the people were completely dumbfounded. Gong Sunliang was an expert at the 5th level of the spirit stage, while Chu Yang was only at the peak of the soul circulation stage. Logically speaking, the difference between the two of them was like the difference between heaven and earth. However, Gong Sunliang was actually defeated in a single move? Gong Sun Ying's pupils shrank. He had never thought that such a scene would occur. Although Gong Sunliang was a little careless, it should not have happened. In particular, the parrot's sentence of light again was really ear-piercing and heart-wrenching. Even Dongfang Che, who was in midair, raised his eyebrows. He felt that there was something strange about Chu Yang, this wild dog. Gong Sunliang couldn't believe that he had lost. He had lost to a wild dog. How was this possible? Wild dog, I will kill you. His hands were originally covering his vital organs, but at this moment, he was so angry that he threw caution to the wind and pounced on Chu Yang like a madman. Chu Yang didn't move, but there was an inexplicable fluctuation that was emitted from his body and disappeared into the air. Afterwards, he raised his hand and slapped over. Slap, slap, slap. He hurriedly covered his head with his hands. However, the strange thing was that when Chu Yang raised his hand to slap over, it seemed to have penetrated through Gong Sunliang's hands that were covering his face. The slaps still caused Gong Sunliang's ears to ring. Gong Sunliang, you just asked why I should pay you back 10 times. Right now, I'm paying you back more than 10 times. Don't you think so? Only Chu Yang's voice could be heard. The entire place was deathly silent. No one understood how he did it. How did Chu Yang's hand penetrate through Gong Sun Liang's defense and directly hit his face? Chapter 10:26. Come here, slap him. How Haodong was also stunned. He instinctively walked over and raised his hand to slap Gong Sunliang. Then, he felt an inexplicable force on his hand. In an instant, he did what Chu Yang did. His hand directly penetrated Gong Sunliang's defense and slapped Gong Sunliang's face. How was this possible? How did he do it? Although he was shocked, his movements were not slow. He slapped Gong Sunliang 10 times. Third young master, quickly kill this wild dog. Gong Sunliang was extremely humiliated. He screamed in a shrill voice that hurt people's eardrums. Slap. Chu Yang slapped his face again. Gong Sunliang's scream came to an abrupt end. A mouthful of blood and teeth were all slapped out. His face was already deformed. I said, you're a piece of trash. I said, I want you to pay me back 10 times. Chu Yang sneered. What did I say wrong? You're just a two-legged maggot. How dare you be so arrogant in front of me? Now I'll cripple you and turn you into a piece of trash. Let's see where your sense of superiority comes from. As he spoke, a ray of spirit energy blasted into Gong Sunliang's body like lightning to cripple him. Wild dog, how dare you? However, at that moment Dongfang Che, who was in midair, suddenly shouted. He waved his sleeve, and a wave of magic power rushed over. Immediately, everyone saw a wave of magic power suddenly appear in midair. It rushed over in an instant and charged towards Chu Yang with a boom. Magic power is indeed powerful. In the Transcendence realm, the spirit energy in a warrior's body would undergo another transformation and turn into magic power. At that time, it would be even more powerful. The quality of magic power was shockingly high. It could even turn waste stones into gold. At this realm, it had already touched upon the mysteries of creation. As soon as Chu Yang came into contact with this wave of magic power, he felt that this wave of magic power was extremely domineering. If he only relied on himself, he would not be able to resist at all. Buzz buzz buzz. Immediately, a light shield appeared and protected Chu Yang. Although the light shield was constantly twisting and humming, it was actually as stable as a rock. It was like a reef on the sea. No matter how big the waves were, they would not be able to wash the reef away. Chu Yang's heart shook. Perhaps I really can compete with this Dongfang Che. However, he did not show the strength of his domain. He deliberately distorted his domain so that it looked like it was about to explode. Then, he grabbed Gong Sunliang and threw him towards the wave of mana. Dongfang Che was afraid of harming Gong Sunliang's life, so he withdrew his transcendence energy and grabbed him. Then, he channeled a stream of transcendence energy into the other party's body. Immediately, Gong Sunliang's entire body trembled. His deformed face immediately returned to normal. One could even see the strong mana rampaging through his body, causing his entire body to inflate like a balloon. His teeth also grew again. Is this the power of the Transcendence realm? Dermic powers really do have miraculous effect. I'm afraid that Big Brother will only be able to grow an arm after reaching the Transcendence realm. Chu Yang narrowed his eyes. This was the first time he had seen the power of a Transcendence realm expert. Once again, he did not have the confidence to fight against a Transcendence realm expert. His technique was actually very simple. He used his domain as an array and superimposed all the power of a 6th-grade array master onto his domain. There was no way to quickly set up an array. However, a domain was actually the best foundation of an array. It was even more perfect than an array set up by an array seal. At least, that was the case for now. Alright, all the injuries on his body have been healed. Dongfang Che threw Gong Sunliang back to Gong Sunying and said, "Junior brother Gong Sunying, this wild dog is a little strange. How about I deal with him?" However, he spoke in an attempt to curry favor with Gong Sunying. To be more precise, he wanted to curry favor with Gong Sunying's elder brother, Gong Sunlong. However, it was all in vain. Gong Sunying did not react at all. He stood rooted to the ground and stared at Chu Yang. Everyone present also looked at Chu Yang in disbelief, with a horrified look on their faces. Dongfang Che's expression turned cold. When he came back to his senses, he was also shocked. This wild dog actually blocked his attack with a mere domain? This was indeed extraordinary. How could a domain formed by the soul reincarnation realm block an attack from a transcendence realm expert? Although Chu Yang's domain was about to shatter in the end, he still managed to hold on for a period of time. This was extremely shocking. Chapter 10:27. Trash. Gong Sun Ing was enraged. He slapped Gong Sun Liang's face, causing his teeth to fall out. What Dongfang Che did just now was useless. "Third young master, please forgive me." Gong Sun Liang trembled. "Forgive me?" Gong Sun Ying's veins twitched on his face. "How can I forgive you? You were enveloped by a wild dog's domain. Can't you sense it? You've lost all your face after being slapped. You've embarrassed me." His words woke everyone up from their daze. In an instant, everyone present understood how Gong Sunliang was slapped just now, and why Chu Yang's arm seemed to be able to penetrate the void. Domain, so it was a domain. In his own domain, Chu Yang was the master. Although penetrating the void was still difficult, it wasn't impossible. Trash, it's really trash. It made me think that this wild dog was so great? He's indeed trash. He couldn't even sense it when he was enveloped by someone's domain. What else can he be if he's not trash? No wonder he was humiliated by the wild dog. How can a trash like him not be humiliated? Gong Sun Ing was furious and scolded. However, his face was gloomy. He could scold, but the others couldn't. However, he couldn't do anything in the face of public anger. At this time, Dongfang Che naturally understood the situation. He looked at Chu Yang and said inwardly, "This wild dog does have some tricks up his sleeve." Tsk. The parrot despised him in its heart. Immoral. Even without using his domain, he can still easily defeat Gong Sun Liang. Gong Sun Ing quickly vented his anger on Chu Yang. He looked at Chu Yang coldly and said, "Wild dog, I'll give you a chance to apologize. Kneel down and beg for mercy and I'll spare your life. Then, go back to the eastern wilderness and be a good dog. If you dare to step foot in the East Continent again and dirty this land, I'll kill you immediately." Chu Yang could already display the power of a 6th-level array master. How could he put Gong Sun Liang, a mere 3rd-level soul fusion realm cultivator, in his eyes? "You are also a piece of trash." Chu Yang pointed at Gong Sun Ing and said, "What's the difference between you and that piece of trash? That's why I'll give you a suggestion. Before you act arrogantly, take a look at that piece of trash. See what he looks like now. Otherwise, it'll be too late for regrets." What? Like Gong Sun Liang, Gong Sun Ing was also stunned. He couldn't believe it. He pointed at himself. "Wild dog, are you talking about me? Previously, I said that you were an idiot. It seems that my description was extremely accurate." Chu Yang sneered. "I've lived long enough to see an idiot like you. If I see too many idiots like you, I suspect that I'll turn into a fool." Shang Guanlan, who was in the distance, heard everything clearly. She was immediately speechless. Chu Yang's words were sharp enough, or rather venomous enough. "Wah-ha!" The parrot laughed heartily. "That two-legged maggot really thinks too highly of himself. He doesn't know what he's doing in front of my lord. I'm going to laugh my head off. Indeed, he's a degenerate bird." After Shang Guanlan, the red sparrow on her shoulder also cursed silently. "Good, good, good. Gong Sun Ing was so angry that smoke was almost coming out of his mouth. A mere wild dog at the peak of the Soul Wheel realm, dared to be so arrogant in front of him. Wild dog, I'd like to see how strong you are. Aren't you afraid that the wind will hurt your tongue? Buzz. Gong Sun Ing raised his hand and grabbed at Chu Yang. A buzzing sound could be heard in the air. Heaven and earth control, break for me, a vast power descended. It was as if a domain had covered Chu Yang's domain. Instantly, the space around him was sealed. Then, it pressed down fiercely and was about to crush his domain. He was confident that the domain formed by the divine demon martial soul could withstand it. However, he didn't want to expose himself. Chapter 10:28. Trash. You think you can break it just like that? Who do you think you are? Buzz. As soon as Chu Yang's voice fell, his domain erupted. It shook fiercely and connected with the heaven and earth. It seemed as if it had become a vast heaven and earth. That vast and mighty power immediately exploded. With a crashing sound, the sealed domain shattered like a mirror and returned to its original state. It's the fluctuation of an array. While Dongfang Che was still in shock, he immediately said, Junior brother Gongsun, you have to be careful. This wild dog is a 6th grade array master. He can use his own domain as an array. His current combat strength is probably not below yours. A level 6 array master. After being stunned for a moment, the people from the East Continent spoke one after another. Wasn't he a level 5 array master? How did he become a level 6 array master? This wild dog's array is amazing. He can even think of using a field as an array. No wonder this wild dog dares to be so arrogant. He does have a trump card. Gong Sun Ing was so angry that he laughed. Wild dog, do you think you can compete with me just because you're a level 6 array master? You can use your field as an array and carry the power of heaven and earth. You're so stupid. Stupid? Chu Yang sneered. He pointed at Gong Sun Liang and said, You're exactly the same as this trash. You don't have any abilities, but you're so arrogant. Is everyone in the Gong Sun family so stupid? What a joke. He continued, If I kill you now, it's no different from slaughtering a dog. Slaughtering a dog? Haha, Gong Sun Ing was so angry that he laughed. Then, his face darkened. He curled his lips and revealed a cruel and mocking smile. He said in a cold voice, Wild dog, I'll make you regret being human. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, the void trembled and the sound of metal rang out. Om. Ma. Me. Om. Then, the Buddhist mantra also sounded. It seemed to be the 6-syllable mantra of Buddhism, but there were only 4 syllables, and the syllables were very strange. However, Gong Sunying was chanting the 4-word mantra. Each of the 4 words contained boundless mysteries and power. With each syllable, Gong Sunying's aura would grow stronger by a notch. Behind him, light and shadow intertwined, and a golden halo appeared. Then, something suddenly emerged from the golden halo. At first, it was still a blur, but it immediately became clear. A majestic snow mountain, and at the peak of the snow mountain, there was a temple. Golden light illuminated the world, illuminating the entire snow in a golden color. In the blink of an eye, black smoke billowed and the golden light was corroded. The entire snowy mountain was pitch black as ink. Roar. With a furious roar, a savage, tyrannical, and ferocious demonic dragon suddenly appeared. It was as if a demonic dragon that had been suppressed by the mountains and temples had broken out of its seal. The birth of the demonic dragon destroyed the world. Devil Dragon Break. The demonic dragon attacked, breaking through the air. At the same time, Gong Sun Ing roared from the void and shot up. He merged with his dragon and attacked Chu Yang. Roar. Amidst the earth-shattering roars, black demonic dragons rushed out from Gong Sun Ying's body, but they were smaller in size. 1, 2, 3, 4. A total of 9 ferocious and brutal demonic dragons appeared and coiled around Gong Sun Ing, protecting him. The 9 small demonic dragons could attack and defend. Snow Mountain Martial Spirit? Dragon Martial Spirit. Chapter 1029. There's also the Buddha Martial Soul. It's a combination martial soul. The Snow Mountain, the temple, the demonic dragon, and the Buddha's head suppressing the demonic dragon. The 3 of them were closely related to each other. Such a martial soul was called a combination martial soul. A combination martial soul was extremely powerful. It was much stronger than a single martial soul. For example, Chu Yang's Destiny Twins martial soul could also be considered a combination martial soul. Chu Yang did not expect Gong Sun Ing to have a combination martial soul. Boom! The huge demonic dragon rushed over. The ground where Chu Yang was standing exploded. Chu Yang had already thrown Cui Xinho and the other 2 away. He flew up into the sky and flew away. Facing the combination of martial spirits, he didn't hesitate and directly activated the celestial demon martial spirit, but he still concealed it. A sun and a moon, 1 celestial and 1 demon, 1 white and 1 black, like a white hole and a black hole, 2 strange phenomena appeared behind his head. Chu Yang also activated the light spiritual qi and the dark spiritual qi to the extreme. The spiritual qi moved around his body. Whoosh! Chu Yang moved slightly and easily dodged Gong Sun Ying's second attack. The Lord says darkness, Chu Yang said. A cold light flashed in his eyes. The dark spiritual qi turned into the devil flying dagger. Then, a ray of demonic light shot out like a black lightning. It tore through the void and pierced Gong Sun Ying's throat. The demonic sound entered Gong Sun Ying's ears and created illusions. It was as if thousands of demons had broken into Gong Sun Ying's spiritual world. Gong Sun Ing instantly felt great fear. His hair stood on end and his hair stood on end. What is this? His face changed. The dark flying dagger made him feel like he was about to die. Roar! The 9 small demonic dragons that were guarding Gong Sun Ing attacked, but they were immediately pierced by the devil flying dagger. However, they continued to attack. Gong Sun Ing dodged again. He immediately dodged the dagger. Whoosh! The devil flying dagger missed and disappeared into the ground. It left a black hole on the ground. It seemed to lead to hell. No one knew how deep it was. Hiss! Everyone from the East Continent gasped. Dongfang Che's pupils abruptly shrank at this moment. Needless to say, Gong Sun Ying's eyelids twitched violently. Such an attack made him shudder. How many secrets does this wild dog have? Why is it so terrifying? At this moment, Gong Sun Ing suddenly thought of the group of people who had died in the depths of the seal in the Sky Academy in the eastern wilderness. That group of people was incomparably terrifying. There were only 10 of them, but they had used their lives to resist the invasion of the outer space demons. Of course, these people were also extremely powerful. Gong Sun Ing felt that Chu Yang was probably the same as those people. So, he no longer dared to underestimate Chu Yang. He put away all the contempt in his heart. If we don't get rid of this wild dog, I'm afraid it'll be a disaster. At this moment, Gong Sun Ing was filled with killing intent. He didn't want the Gong Sun clan to be destroyed like some other clans. Those people who had died in the depths of the Sky Academy in the eastern wilderness were all ruthless people. In the end, because someone had mocked them, those who had mocked them were all killed, and the clans that had been implicated were all wiped out. Boom! Gong Sun Ing took out a divine spear with his right hand. With the demonic dragon coiled around him, he exerted his body movement to the limit. Like a black lightning bolt, he charged toward Chu Yang. Boom! Boom! In a short time, Gong Sun Ing stabbed with his divine spear hundreds of times. Each strike had the power to shatter mountains. Chapter 1030. On the other side, Chu Yang's choice shocked everyone. He was actually fighting Gong Sun Ing head-on. Gongsun Ying's aura was as thick as a mountain and as vast as the sea. It was overbearing and filled with destructive power. However, Chu Yang used his domain and array to neutralize it. Not only that, Chu Yang created layers of phantoms that filled the void. Coupled with the 5 elements' disordered steps, it created chaos that made Gongsun Ying unable to capture Chu Yang's real body. In the end, all of his accurate judgments were wrong. More than 60% of his attacks missed, hitting empty air. Boom, boom, boom. Strong astral winds blew in the air. Thunderous booms rang out continuously. Dazzling lights exploded continuously as the two of them engaged in an intense battle. The more Gongsun Ying fought, the more frightened he became. He found that Chu Yang had endless means. He was very afraid of Chu Yang's devil-flying dagger, but he had to pay attention to Chu Yang's spiritual attacks. Chu Yang's every strike was imbued with the power to destroy souls and spirits. Many times, the demonic dragon that he had conjured with his spirit chi was directly destroyed, causing the demonic dragon to collapse right away. Even his divine soul was slightly injured due to carelessness, and there was a burning pain in his divine soul. Boom! Suddenly, a black spear appeared in Chu Yang's hand. The demonic aura was rolling around it. Although Gongsun Ying couldn't see its true appearance, he was instinctively afraid. When the spear came, he was even more alarmed. He felt that he would die if he didn't dodge it. He didn't dare to take it head-on and hurriedly dodged. Even so, a wave of devil chi broke through his defenses and rushed into his body, causing him to feel a wave of fear. Damn it, what the hell is this? Gongsun Ying had just narrowly escaped death. If he was a little slower, he might have been killed or at least seriously injured. At this moment, he was really frightened. He felt that he couldn't block that attack at all. If he tried to block it, he would definitely die. Moreover, with his experience, he had never seen such a fierce attack. Wild dog, what kind of trick is this? How arrogant was Gongsun Ying? He saw Chu Yang as a dog. If it wasn't for the fact that he was extremely shocked, how could he ignore the humiliation and question a dog? This was simply a disgrace. Two-legged maggot, I'll tell you the truth. I am the Lord, the omnipotent Lord. You feel fear because the Lord is walking on earth. You have offended the Lord. Chu Yang's body was like an illusion as he executed the chaotic 5 elements step. He flickered in the air, constantly changing positions, making it impossible for others to capture his true body. Naturally, he couldn't tell his opponent about the devil's spear. After all, it was related to his 2 martial souls. He was also extremely shocked. If he was in the eastern wilderness, he could have used the devil's flying dagger or the devil's spear, and he would have immediately succeeded. However, under the support of the formation, he actually failed repeatedly. Wild dog, you're courting death. Chu Yang said seriously. I'm telling the truth. Why don't you believe me? I'm really your master. Such ridicule had exceeded the limit of Gongsun Ying's patience. He was furious. Wild dog, do you really think that I can't do anything to you? Buddha suppressing demonic dragon. Roar. An earth-shattering dragon roar resounded, and the sound waves rushed out, shaking the void. Endless black gas surged out from Gongsun Ying's body and filled the void. Under the gazes of countless people, Gongsun Ying suddenly disappeared and was replaced by a huge black demonic dragon in the rolling black gas. It broke through the void and pounced on Chu Yang. Rumble! Almost as soon as the demonic dragon pounced on Chu Yang, a majestic snow mountain appeared above him. The temple on the mountain was like a huge golden sun, emitting endless golden light. The golden light shone and dyed the world golden. Om. Ma. Me. Om. The strange Buddhist mantra also resounded once again, suppressing Chu Yang. Do you think that I'm the demonic dragon and want to suppress me? Chu Yang's eyelids couldn't help but twitch crazily at this moment. His heart was alarmed. He felt a strong sense of crisis. Gong Sun Liang's attack was different from any of the previous ones. Not only did he disappear, but the three martial souls of his combination martial soul had also appeared. The demonic dragon pounced, the snow mountain suppressed, and the temple appeared. Each of the attacks was extremely vast and unavoidable. The area covered by the three martial souls was too large. Chapter 1031. Although the snowy mountain was not a real snowy mountain, under the suppression, a sudden change occurred. The air was pressured as if it had materialized. The temperature within a radius of 500 feet plummeted, as if the world had suddenly fallen into a world of ice and snow. The north wind whistled, and thousands of goose-feather snowflakes fell from the sky, covering the world in white. Roar! The dragon's roar resounded throughout the world. The demonic dragon's head was like a mountain peak, and its eyes were blazing. It suddenly clawed at Chu Yang. So what if you have a combination martial spirit? Today, I will beat you until you don't have any temper. I will ruthlessly trample on your self-esteem. Let's see how you will be rampant in front of me. Chu Yang's heart trembled. At the same time, he felt a strong sense of crisis, and at the same time, he was secretly angry in his heart. Sky flipping seal. Chu Yang didn't move at all. Instead, he suddenly displayed the overturning heaven seal. Rumble! Thunder rumbled, and shadows moved in the void. In an instant, countless illusions of the sun and the moon flashed, crisscrossing and flashing. Under countless gazes, Chu Yang's body surged with demonic qi. His domain was as black as ink, as if it was hell. He was the ruler of hell, the supreme demon sovereign. At this moment, he seemed to be as high as the sky, as if he could pick the stars and the moon with a raise of his hand. Although the combination martial spirit was powerful, Chu Yang's demon martial spirit was even more powerful. Now, he was not using the sky flipping seal, but the demon martial spirit. The first batch of creatures born in the world was naturally incomparably powerful. Chu Yang did not know who was stronger between the sky humans and the demon gods. Perhaps the demon gods belonged to the first batch of creatures born in the world. However, he was clear that he only had the sky human's visualization diagram, but he had the real demon martial spirit. The demon martial spirit wreaked havoc in the world, turning the world upside down and plunging people into misery and suffering. It was even more unimaginable, and its destructive power was even greater. When Chu Yang used the demon martial spirit to use the sky flipping seal, its power was far greater than when he used the sky human's visualization. In an instant, everyone within a radius of several hundred meters felt a strange sensation. It was as if the entire world was spinning, the sun and the moon were falling, and the entire world had been turned upside down. The sky was down and the ground was up. That kind of confusion made everyone feel uncomfortable and even dizzy. 1. The entire world had been turned upside down. The suppressing snow was suddenly reversed. The golden temple was right above Chu Yang's head. The aura was no longer pressing down, but in the opposite direction, pressing up. The demonic dragon also turned around, but it didn't affect it much. It rolled in the air and immediately rushed towards Chu Yang. Scree! A high-pitched cry resounded through the world as a black storm swept out from Chu Yang's body. Within the storm, a demonic bird soared into the sky and spread its wings. It charged towards the demonic dragon with the force of thunder, its demonic claws slashing down viciously. The desolate demon's innate ability to transform into a Koan Prung failed, resulting in an unknown devil bird. Boom! Chu Yang punched out, bombarding the golden temple that was close by. Accompanied by the collision of the devil bird and the demonic dragon, an earth-shattering sound was heard. The energy converged, turning into a blazing sun that was more than 300 meters in diameter. As soon as this sun appeared, it suddenly expanded. In an instant, it soared to 80 to 90 meters tall and exploded with a rumbling sound. At that moment, time seemed to have stopped in the world. Endless astral winds, wrapped in destructive power, swept through the surroundings. Endless rays of light burst out, illuminating the entire world. Chapter 1032. The people from the East Continent couldn't help but close their eyes in fear. Gongsun Ing was an inner court student of the Sky Academy. Although he was only in the soul amalgamation realm, he was able to enter the inner court, which proved his strength. But how could Wild Dog be so powerful? This was far beyond the imagination of the people from the East Continent. Boom! When the light dissipated, the gale slowly died down. A slender figure flew out from the center of the battle, looking extremely wretched. He crashed into the ground, causing a cloud of dust to rise into the air. It was Gongsun Ing. That moment was enough for them to see who flew out. It turned out that Gongsun Ing, who was stronger, was completely defeated. How was this possible? Seeing this, not to mention the people from the East Continent, even Dongfang Che, who was in the air, was deeply shocked by this scene. Chu Yang was just a wild dog from the eastern wilderness, while Gongsun Ing was a member of the famous Gongsun family in the East Continent. How could Gongsun Ing lose? Especially when Chu Yang's realm was far lower than Gongsun Ying's. As for just now, Gongsun Liang lost, but in the eyes of the people from the East Continent, that battle wasn't a loss. However, at that moment, they had no choice but to admit that Gongsun Ing had truly and thoroughly lost. Rumble! While the East Continent was in dead silence, Chu Yang appeared and rushed toward Gongsun Ing like a bolt of lightning, leaving a long trail of air behind him. It was clear that he wanted to take advantage of the victory and kill Gongsun Ing. Wild Dog, how dare you! Wild Dog, you'd better think it through. Gongsun Ing is a member of the Gongsun family. If you kill him, no one can save you. Wild Dog, you really have dog guts. Chu Yang heard the roars and threats of the people from the East Continent and sneered in his heart. According to what you said, should I just cut off my head and give it to you? So what if they are from the Gongsun family? I already have a grudge against the Gongsun family. Chu Yang was about to kill Gongsun Ing. However, just as Chu Yang was about to get close to Gongsun Ing, a sudden change occurred. A cold snort startled Chu Yang into coming to his senses. Dongfang Che. He hurriedly dodged, but just as he did, Dongfang Che appeared where he had been standing. The sword pierced through the air with incomparable speed. Where the tip of the sword pierced, the air collapsed, forming a huge vortex, distorting the light, making that area incomparably dark. The destructive power of the sword was incomparably terrifying. It was enough to turn metal into dust. Chu Yang's eyes narrowed. If he hadn't dodged in time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Wild Dog, do you still think you can escape? Dongfang Che sneered as he swung out the sword in his hand, and it instantly transformed into a ghastly, murderous, cold, and extremely fierce sword wheel. It carried a murderous aura that surged like an ocean as it blasted towards Chu Yang, yet it stopped halfway. Brother Dongfang, I will remember this favor. Gongsun Ing had unknowingly emerged from the dust cloud. At this moment, he was in an extremely sorry state. His hair was disheveled, and his body was covered in blood. Even his chest was slightly caved in. Blood was flowing from his forehead, dyeing half of his face red, making him look even more ferocious and vicious. His face was also red, even to his neck. His eyes were as venomous as a viper's as he stared at Chu Yang. If I don't kill you, Wild Dog, today's humiliation will never be washed away. It will become a permanent stain in my life. Chapter 1033. Haha. Chu Yang laughed. Using your servant's words, why don't you take a piss and look at yourself, you two-legged maggot? If not for that meddling dog, you would be a dead man by now. Why are you acting all high and mighty in front of me? Ridiculous. Even if senior brother Dongfang didn't make a move, Wild Dog, you could have killed me too. Gongsun Ying's arrogance was trampled on. A hint of madness appeared in his eyes as he roared madly. "What do you think?" Chu Yang laughed. "Do you think you would still be alive after I finished off a piece of trash like you with my spear?" A demonic spear appeared in his hand. Demonic energy billowed around it, concealing its true appearance. However, it made everyone's heart palpitate. It was as if a ferocious demon was hiding within the billowing demonic energy. Gongsun Ing choked. He was extremely wary of Chu Yang's means. Thus, he knew that he was in great danger just now. He owed Dongfang Che a life. However, how could Gongsun Ing admit that he was no match for a wild dog? "Wild dog, you're too arrogant." Gongsun Ying's voice seemed to have become twisted, just like his face. He said sinisterly, "I just didn't want to sully my artifact just now. Now I'll let you have the honor." Boom. Spiritual energy transformed into a dragon and soared into the sky. A yin-yang diagram appeared under Gongsun Ying's feet. With a sudden movement, the yin-yang diagram of the four symbols also appeared. At the same time, a dazzling light wrapped around the bottle rushed out of his body and landed in his hand. The light became even more dazzling. Wung wung wung. Space trembled incessantly as it emitted buzzing sounds continuously. Circle after circle of ripples surged out as if it was informing the world that something extraordinary had appeared. In the blink of an eye, when the light receded, the bottle could be seen clearly. There were only two colors, black and white. Black and white represented yin and yang, so the two colors were evenly distributed. On the four sides of the bottle were the azure dragon, vermilion bird, black tortoise, and white tiger. The mouth of the bottle was hazy and chaotic energy was rising. The yin-yang four symbols vase, the saint artifact of the Gongsun family. Wild dog is dead for sure this time. If he doesn't die, I'll be his grandson. It's definitely an honor for Wild Dog to die in the yin-yang four symbols vase. This precious vase was precisely the yin-yang four symbols vase. As soon as it appeared, everyone from the eastern continent cried out in surprise. There was an uproar, and they were endlessly shaken. It was clear how shocking this yin-yang four symbols vase was. Otherwise, how could it cause such a commotion? However, it was extremely strenuous for Gongsun Ing to operate the yin-yang four symbols vase. The spiritual qi in his body was swept into the vase like a tide, causing Gongsun Liang to suddenly shrivel up. A Transcendence Realm Artifact. This is the Transcendence Realm yin-yang four symbols vase. Chu Yang's eyes narrowed. He could clearly feel that after Gongsun Ying's spiritual qi was swallowed by the yin-yang four symbols vase, it turned into surging spiritual qi that supported the operation of the yin-yang four symbols vase. Chu Yang was no stranger to the yin-yang four symbols vase. When he was in the eastern wilderness, he had once wielded it. However, in the end, he had returned it to his second brother, the Saint's son. Although the Saint's son hated this item, the yin-yang four symbols vase and the Saint's son had an irreconcilable relationship. Therefore, Chu Yang had returned it in the end. Because of this, Chu Yang was naturally no stranger to the yin-yang four symbols vase. At this moment, countless ideas appeared in his mind as he madly deduced a solution. The yin-yang four symbols vase in Gongsun Ying's hand was undoubtedly a replica. However, it was also certain that this vase was definitely much more powerful than the Saint's son's yin-yang four symbols vase. I thought there was something special about it. A bold idea appeared in Chu Yang's mind. However, he wasn't confident and it was also very dangerous. Therefore, he opened his mouth to gain more time to deduce. He sneered and said, "This thing is obviously a replica." Chapter 1034. Although the yin-yang four symbols vase in Gongsun Ying's hand was also a replica, its grade was much higher. Therefore, Chu Yang could not be sure if the four symbols vase in front of him was the same as the one he had. Therefore, he was not absolutely sure. However, he decided to take the risk. If he could get the yin-yang four symbols vase, It was not impossible to deal with Dongfang Che. If he really risked his life, it was hard to say who would die. However, the key was how to get the yin-yang four symbols vase. Chu Yang's mouth was a little dry. Then, he sneered, "Enough, two-legged maggot. Stop showing off your superiority. I'm annoyed just by looking at you. Wild dog, you deserve to die. Take." Buzz. Gong Sun Ing pointed the mouth of the bottle at Chu Yang. Immediately, chaos surged out of the bottle. It was misty, and the void shook. A buzzing sound was continuously heard. Then, the mouth of the bottle turned black. It was as if a black hole had been placed on it. A huge and irresistible suction force burst out. Chu Yang opened his field and used the formation, but it was useless. With a whoosh, he was sucked in. Chu Ke, the parrot screamed. Cui Xinho, Hao Haodong, and O Lijing were also shocked. On the periphery, Shangguan Lan, who saw all this, was shocked. She almost screamed, but nothing happened in the end. She found that everything seemed to be a bit too easy, and then her body shook violently. Ha ha! Gong Sun Ing put Chu Yang into the yin-yang four symbols vase and laughed. Wild dog, this is an eye-opener for you. You should know what fear is. Dongfang Che looked at the yin-yang four symbols vase on Gong Sun Ying's face. He wanted to snatch it, but he did not dare. Instead, he said, "Junior brother Gongsun, the yin-yang four symbols vase is too powerful. If you force it, I'm afraid you will hurt your foundation. You don't know when you can recover." Then, he shook his head. "Junior brother Gongsun, it's not worth it to deal with a wild dog." At the same time, he raised his hand and a powerful surge of magic power was projected into Gong Sun Ying's body. In an instant, Gong Sun Ying's aura skyrocketed and returned to its peak. "Many thanks, senior brother Dongfang." Gong Sun Ying cupped his fists and said, "Senior brother is right. However, if I don't kill this wild dog with my own hands, not only will I be humiliated, I will also have a heart demon. In the future, I will be stuck at the soul fusion realm." Dongfang Che nodded his head repeatedly. "Junior brother Gongsun, you've thought this through even more thoroughly than I have." Then, he changed the topic and looked at Cui Xinho and the others. "Now it's time to deal with these wild dog, but we don't need to dirty our hands." "Ha ha!" Gong Sun Ing immediately laughed and said, "Senior brother Dongfang is right. However, Chu Yang is a wild dog. If I just kill him and burn half of him into ashes and the other half into water, I won't be able to vent my anger. Senior brother Gongsun, I'll help you smooth out the remaining qi." Dongfang Jing boldly stepped out and stared at Cui Xinho and the others. He sneered and said, "Let me deal with these wild dog. They will definitely scream in pain. As long as young Master Gongsun lets that wild dog hear everything from the vase, I'm sure he will be in a good mood and die with regrets." Chapter 1035. Buzz Buzz Buzz. At this moment, the yin-yang four symbols vase in Gongsun Ying's hand began to vibrate violently, creating huge ripples in the void. Gongsun Ying's expression changed, and his smile froze on his face. Dongfang Che still hadn't noticed the abnormality and sneered. "This wild dog probably heard it and is extremely unwilling. It's actually still struggling for its life. Senior brother Dongfang, come and help me suppress the vase." Gong Sun Ing screamed in horror. His voice was even sharper than the parrot's. At that moment, he felt like he had stepped on air and was about to fall into a bottomless abyss. He was so scared that his face turned pale. The joy of venting his anger and laughing had completely disappeared. "What?" Dongfang Che was shocked, but he did not slow down. However, as soon as he channeled his power, the yin-yang four symbols vase twisted in Gongsun Ying's hand and slipped out like a fish. It flew into the air with a whoosh. "Oh no!" Gongsun Ying screamed as if he had stepped into the gates of hell. He could clearly feel that the mark left on the yin-yang four symbols vase had been easily erased. It felt as if someone had rushed into his house, killed him with a knife, and robbed him of his woman. he instantly lost his connection with the yin-yang four symbols vase. Buzz. A buzzing sound came from the sky. The yin-yang four symbols vase spat out a figure. Who else could it be but Chu Yang? Chu Yang rushed out. With a thought, the yin-yang four symbols vase immediately flew into his hand. Then, he used his territory as a formation to crazily devour the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. Endless spiritual qi poured into the yin-yang four symbols vase, making it shine brightly. Wah-ha! The parrot cried tears of joy at the sudden turn of events. It shouted, "You wicked man, you're really powerful. Your power is boundless, and your lifespan is as long as the heavens." Cui Xinho and the other two were also roaring and venting their anger. On the other hand, everyone from the East Continent turned pale with fright. Chu Yang had been sucked into the yin-yang four symbols vase. They had thought that Chu Yang was dead for sure. However, Chu Yang had suddenly seized the yin-yang four symbols vase. This had simply scared them out of their wit. Shangguan Lan also laughed. Putting Brother Yang into the yin-yang four symbols vase is probably what Brother Yang wants. Now, with the yin-yang four symbols vase, Brother Yang will be even more powerful. That was more or less the truth. Chu Yang possessed the reincarnation gourd. He had three methods, namely, soul-slaying, detention, and soul-devouring, which were all targeted at souls. In the competition for the formation seal, his advantages had already been reflected early on. In the same way, since it could deal with the array formation master's thoughts, how could it not deal with the spiritual imprint left by a martial artist in a treasure artifact? Therefore, it was easy for Chu Yang to destroy Gongsun Ying's spiritual imprint in the yin-yang four symbols vase. Another reason was that Chu Yang had a very clear understanding of the structure of the yin-yang four symbol vase. This was also a very important reason why he could master the yin-yang four symbol vase. It was not as strenuous for Chu Yang to operate the yin-yang four symbol vase as it was for Gongsun Ying. He used the formation to devour the spiritual qi of heaven and earth to operate the yin-yang four symbol vase, so it was much easier for him. He weighed the yin-yang four symbol vase in his hand and glanced at Gongsun Ying coldly. "Two-legged maggot, who did you say you were going to burn half into ashes and half into water?" Gongsun Ying was shocked, angry, and ashamed. His face was as red as a pig's liver. "Dong Fong Dong maggot." Chu Yang's eyes turned cold. When he stared at Dong Fong Jing, his voice became even colder. "Who do you want to let die with everlasting regret?" Thump, thump. Dongfang Jing retreated in fear. Chu Yang was even more disdainful. "A maggot like you seems to have eaten lard to blind your heart. I've stripped you naked and hung you up to dry, but you still don't wake up. You even dare to offend the Lord again and disrespect the Lord." Chapter 1036. Shangguan Lan couldn't help but laugh when she heard that. Her big brother Yang was really arrogant after he got what he wanted. He claimed to be the master and held such a title. Wasn't he afraid of being struck by lightning? Collect. Chu Yang patted the yin-yang four symbols vase and turned it. The vase aimed at Dongfang Jing and suddenly released a suction force. Dongfang Jing was pulled over uncontrollably. He screamed in panic, "No, save me!" As soon as he said that, he was sucked into the yin-yang four symbols vase. This wild dog can control the yin-yang four symbols vase. The fear in Gongsun Ying's heart was magnified. Didn't this mean that if this wild dog reached the Saint Realm, it could easily take away the Dongfang clan's sacred weapon? He couldn't let this wild dog live. He had to kill it, he had to kill it. He couldn't imagine what would happen if Chu Yang leaked the secret of the yin-yang four symbols vase. "Kill this wild dog!" He roared at the top of his lungs. "Senior brother Dongfang, kill this wild dog for me and the Gongsun clan will owe you a favor." "A favor from the Gongsun clan?" Dongfang Che's lips couldn't help but dry. His heart was burning, but he didn't show it. He only said, Junior brother Gongsun, you're treating me like an outsider. It's just killing a wild dog. What's there to owe? Idiot. Chu Yang directly said, you don't even know that you're about to die. You're still dreaming of being a lackey. I've seen stupid people, but I've never seen anyone as stupid as you. I've seen cheap people, but I've never seen anyone as cheap as you. Wild dog. Dongfang Che was furious. You think you can do anything to me just because you stole the yin-yang four symbols vase? Swoosh. He swung the sword in his hand at Chu Yang. A sword wheel-like before appeared, but before its power was fully released, Chu Yang controlled the yin-yang four symbols vase and absorbed the sword energy. Humph, I told you that you're stupid, but you don't believe me. Today, I'll show you just how stupid you are. Yin-yang vase of the four symbols, absorb. Buzz buzz buzz. Chu Yang's god martial spirit controlled the domain and the array. The flood dragon martial spirit and the saber martial spirit absorbed the heaven and earth spiritual chi, and the demon martial spirit controlled the yin-yang four symbols bottle. In an instant, the world around him seemed to have collapsed, and a shocking suction force burst out. The essence of the world was constantly being sucked away, and the people of the East Continent even felt that the spirit chi in their bodies was being sucked out. The yin-yang vase of the four symbols was even more frightening than Gongsun Ying's. The mouth of the vase was like a gate to hell. At this moment, when the hole opened, it was as if hell had appeared. Demonic aura surged out from within, and it was as if thousands of ghosts and demons had appeared. Layers upon layers of ghostly shadows and demonic shadows. The demonic march of slaughter and the miserable cries of the dead mixed together, forming a scene of madness, chaos, and blood-red slaughter, a scene of doomsday. Behind Chu Yang, the bloody light of doomsday appeared. Great Sun Sword Wheel, stabilize for me. Dongfang Che couldn't control himself and was about to be swallowed by the yin-yang four symbols vase. He was completely terrified and roared. A huge sword wheel appeared behind him, and an endless dazzling sword light bloomed, making the sword wheel look like a great sun. It landed behind him and stabilized his body. This was his Dharma form, the great sun sword wheel. Reincarnation. Chapter 1037. In an instant, 9 black vortexes appeared at the mouth of the bottle. 6 of them seemed to be the vortexes of the 6 paths of reincarnation, while the remaining 3 were the vortexes of the Soul Slayer, Detention, and Soul Devourer. The suction force suddenly increased, and the world suddenly darkened. It was as if all the light in the world was being swallowed into the yin-yang four symbols bottle. The effect was immediate. Dongfang Che was horrified to find that even his Dharma power could not protect him. He was being sucked in bit by bit. More shockingly, he found that his own soul was also being attacked and was about to be sucked out. How is this possible? How can the yin-yang four symbols bottle absorb other people's souls? How did this wild dog do it? But he did not have time to think about this. He roared, "Great Sun Sword Dragon, set the universe!" Clang clang clang. The sound of swords rang out continuously. A storm of swords appeared, and countless swords formed a fan-shaped sword forest. Then, they changed and combined into a huge dragon. The dragon held the sun in its mouth, and bit the great sun sword wheel tightly. It used all its strength to pull back and stabilize Dongfang Che's body once again. Either you die or I die. If Chu Yang could not hold Dongfang Che and waited for Dongfang Che to counterattack, he would be doomed. The best opportunity was in front of him. How could he give it up? He had to hold on even if he died. Demon overturning the sky seal. Buzz. Chu Yang used the overturning the sky seal again. Suddenly, the universe was turned upside down, and the direction of the falling sun and moon appeared. Dongfang Che was caught off guard. His Dharma power was resisting the suction force of the yin-yang four symbols bottle with all its strength. Could not protect that space at all. He and his Dharma power were turned upside down. Heaven and earth spun, the sun and moon lost their light, and the overturning the sky seal messed up Dongfang Che's Dharma power. In that short moment, the Dharma power temporarily lost its effect. With a whoosh, Dongfang Che was directly sucked into the yin-yang four symbols bottle. He won. Ha ha. Chu Yang laughed loudly. The pressure in his heart was suddenly reduced. The moment he defeated Dongfang Che, he caught a glimmer of hope. But things were far from over. This was just the beginning. He defeated Dongfang Che. There were many Dongfang Che in the East Continent. There were still many biased old men in the Sky Academy. If they appeared, Chu Yang wouldn't be able to explain himself even if he had a reason. Even if he had a reason, it would be useless. The discrimination of the East Continent could only be resolved with force. Just like what Chu Yang knew in his previous life, the truth was only within the range of a cannon. Gong Sun Ing, where's your sense of superiority? Why don't you show it to me again? While Chu Yang was laughing, his divine perception swept around and suddenly found Shangguan Lan on the periphery. He was shocked, and so was Shangguan Lan. #yen, #yen, #. Afterwards, Chu Yang cursed in his heart. He sensed that the beauty didn't seem to have much hostility, but did the others not? Keep. He activated the yin-yang four symbols vase again and sucked Gong Sun Ing into it. Then, the wings of light and dark spread out under the cover of the thunder. Silver snakes danced, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. Shwa. He exerted the 8 arms of the Mahamayuri Sutra, grabbed Chui Shinho and the other two, and shot out toward the exit of the Sky Academy. He escaped. The wild dog escaped. The people of the East Continent were extremely surprised. Someone shouted to chase, but in the end, no one moved. They just watched Chu Yang escape farther and farther away. Bastard, you violated the rules of the Academy and are heinous. How dare you escape? Suddenly, an angry voice came out of nowhere. Then, everyone saw an old man appear in the air. He had white hair, skin like an old tree, and the death chi on his body was very strong. The leader of the lower house. Shangguan Lan exclaimed, unable to hide her shock. The leader of the lower house had reached the first level of the life and death realm, the death spirit realm. Spirit was not spiritual chi, but the spirit of living creatures. It was the profound meaning of life and death of living creatures. The leader of the lower house of the Sky Academy was surrounded by death chi because he had reached the death spirit realm. She was definitely no match for him. She hurriedly said, Xiao Mei, why hasn't the person I asked you to invite come yet? Just at this time, the leader of the lower house took a step in midair, and instantly arrived behind Chu Yang. His voice was like rolling thunder, and carried endless majesty as it rumbled into Chu Yang's ears and spiritual world. Evil creature, why aren't you kneeling down and begging for mercy? Bastard, your whole family are bastards. You should kneel down and beg for mercy. Chu Yang cursed wildly. Everything was as he expected. These bastards of the Sky Academy would never stand on his side, so he cursed to his heart's content. Chapter 1038. Bastard, violating the rules of the Academy and murdering your fellow disciples is already a serious crime. Now you even dare to speak dirty words. I really can't let you live. For some reason, the leader of the lower house saw Chu Yang, and his wrinkled face instantly became ferocious. Old bastard, you are the bastard, your whole family are bastards. At this moment, Chu Yang frantically increased his speed, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't widen the distance between them. The approach of the lower yard master made him feel as if he was an ant that had met a giant. He was about to be trampled to death by the giant. The parrot was uncharacteristically fearless, and its beak on Chu Yang's shoulder also spouted, Old bastard, the east is not bright, the west is bright. You look like an idiot. Your complex facial features can't hide your simple IQ. You look like an idiot from the left, a fool from the right, a pig from the top and a donkey from the bottom. Animals become humans when they wear clothes, but you immediately become an animal when you wear clothes. You know you are ugly, but you still dare to come out. Even if you don't lose face, your parents will lose face for you. If your parents don't lose face, I will also lose face for your parents. #yen, #yen%yen. The parrot's talent for scolding was fully displayed, and the people who heard it were immediately refreshed, and even had a great realization in an instant. It turned out that one could scold people like this. I guessed right, that parrot is really a scum bird. The red sparrow on Shangguanlan's shoulder was even more dissatisfied with the appointed marriage. As for Chu Yang, it also felt that he was similar to this scum bird, and they were all dirty essences. Shangguanlan was not in the mood to comment on Chu Yang now, and she was very anxious now. Feathered bastard, the lower courtyard's lord was scolded so badly that he directly roared. The expression on his face became even more ferocious. Looking at his appearance, everyone felt that Chu Yang's ability was too great. He had unexpectedly angered the dignified lower courtyard's lord to such an extent. It was reasonable to say that the lord of the lower house could pinch Chu Yang to death with a raise of his hand. How could he be angry and be irritated by an ant? The lord of the lower house lost his composure, which made people feel that there was something wrong with his reaction. Why did they feel that Chu Yang was the murderer of his father? Chi. The lower house lord hated the parrot very much. He flicked his finger, and a stream of death chi shot toward it. The parrot was so frightened that all of its feathers stood on end. Domain. Formation. Chu Yang was shocked. As he roared, the devil domain was completely activated. Enveloped by the domain, he felt as if he was in hell. Under the control of the god martial spirit, the domain and the formation were perfectly integrated. At this moment, his domain seemed to be integrated with the heaven and earth. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The domain became more and more vigorous, sturdier and thicker, but it was all in vain. In front of that trace of death chi, everything was like rotten wood, directly penetrated. Seeing that the parrot was about to be killed, Chu Yang used his big hand to display the heaven patching seal. It was as if he was patching up a hole in the sky, blocking the path. Chi. The heaven patching seal was penetrated, and so was Chu Yang's big hand. However, under the obstruction of his devil domain and the array, the death chi was exhausted. But in the next moment, Chu Yang's big hand was penetrated, and the death chi that entered his body immediately surged. Soon, Chu Yang was aging at a visible speed. In an instant, he was even older than the lord of the lower house. He was on his last breath, and was on the verge of death. Wicked! The parrot screamed, and its eyes were about to pop out. Chapter 1039. Brother Goat. Shangguanlan also exclaimed out loud. She desperately rushed over, but suddenly stopped. At this time, the lord of the lower house also let out a cry of surprise. His pair of lifeless old eyes clearly saw that Chu Yang was rapidly recovering. What was even more amazing was that after Chu Yang aged extremely quickly, he suddenly turned into an infant, a child, a teenager, a young man, and finally returned to his original appearance. Reincarnation! How is this possible? The lord of the lower house was stunned for a moment, but in an instant, his face became even more ferocious and twisted crazily. His eyes were full of madness. Evil creature, die. The more amazing Chu Yang's talent was, the more the lord of the lower house lost his composure. Ha ha! Chu Yang was extremely sensitive to this. He laughed loudly and mocked. Old bastard, are you jealous of me? How can an old beast like you compare to me? You're the master. Why don't you bark a few more times for me to hear? In fact, Chu Yang shuddered at the blow just now. Fortunately, he had mastered the reincarnation superpower. Otherwise, he would have died without a doubt. Even so, he could not withstand another blow. That blow just now consumed a lot of his life force. Fortunately, his life force was strong. Otherwise, he would not have survived. Bastard, I'll tear your mouth apart and make you beg for death. Boom! A giant white bone hand of death appeared, covering the sky and the sun. The death chi rolled and enveloped Chu Yang. Chu Yang did not dare to let the giant hand of death get close to him. Once his domain and formation were broken, the death chi would invade his body, and he would die without a doubt. At the critical moment, he threw out the yin-yang four symbols bottle without thinking. Explode. The explosion of the yin-yang four symbols bottle of the Transcendence realm should be able to temporarily block the giant white bone hand, but Chu Yang had no way to deal with it. Do you think we'll explode just because you say so, wild dog? The lower house lord's voice was cold and full of resentment. It rumbled like thunder and resounded through the entire world. Then, the white bone hand directly grabbed the yin-yang four symbols vase. The death chi cut off the connection between Chu Yang and the vase. This was truly despairing. They couldn't even detonate the yin-yang four symbols vase. How dare you! Just as Shangguanlan was yelling, a weak voice completely covered her voice. I'm a disciple of the Eastern Wilderness. If I want to explode, I'll explode. Quanningjie, you old dog, can you stop me? Rumble. Along with that weak voice, there was a loud bang. The yin-yang four symbols vase exploded, and screams of pain came from it. Dongfang Che, Gong Sun Ing, and the others who were inside the yin-yang four symbols vase died without a complete corpse. A huge storm swept out with the aura of death, causing that area to be gloomy and gloomy. It was as if it was a land of death, shrouded in the aura of death. Sizzle! 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 When the aura of death fell on Chu Yang's domain, it sizzled and emitted white smoke. Even his domain quickly withered like a lush tree. The luster on it dimmed, and the domain kept curling and twisting. What a terrifying aura of death! Chu Yang was shocked, but at this time, he was no longer in danger. An extremely weak young man appeared in front of him. Although he looked young, he could sense the aura of endless years from his body. Who knew how long he had lived? In addition, Chu Yang also felt that there was a trace of demonic qi lingering on this young man. The demonic qi of the outer world demons. The world that Chu Yang was in was extremely repulsive to the aura of another world. So much so that Chu Yang didn't need to say anything or think to know that the devil aura was the devil aura of the outer space demons. Chapter 1040. The most shocking thing about the appearance of this young man was the sword chi on his body. He didn't have a sword in his hand, and his hands were empty. However, the moment he appeared, a sharp and domineering sword chi soared into the sky with him as the center. He was like a heavenly sword, standing tall and lofty like the master of 10,000 swords, making all swords submit to him. The world was dead silent. The people in the East Continent who had come to see how the head of the lower house would kill Chu Yang all knelt down and trembled all over. Crack! The head of the lower house's teeth were chattering and he was trembling like a sieve. He looked at the young man with fear in his eyes. You didn't die? At this moment, his aged face didn't dare reveal the slightest trace of fierceness and ferocity. His originally warped face was now pale like a sheet of gold without the slightest trace of blood, and his lips had already turned blue and violet as if he'd been poisoned. The young man didn't answer at all. He just said, "Son of a bitch, you were not as good as us and were severely humiliated. Today, you vent your anger on a junior from the Eastern Wilderness. Do you want to die, or do you want me to send you to hell?" A senior from the Eastern Wilderness. Chu Yang was shocked. Is he the senior from the Eastern Wilderness who guarded the seal of the Sky Academy? Other than that, Chu Yang couldn't think of anyone else. When he was in the deserted village, his sixth great-uncle had told him that the people from the Eastern Wilderness, except for the Eastern Wilderness, were all amazing talents. If they hadn't resisted the extraterrestrial demons and died, No one in the East Continent would dare to humiliate the people from the Eastern Wilderness. The reason why the Sky Academy recruited people from the Eastern Wilderness was not only because of the Eastern Wilderness, but also because of the seniors from the Eastern Wilderness. They had resisted the extraterrestrial demons and guarded the seal. Brother Seema, calm down. A voice came from the upper house of the Sky Academy. Although it was calm, it was full of majesty. It came from the sky like a thunderbolt from the ninth heaven. However, when the young man heard the voice, he looked up at the upper house of the Sky Academy coldly and said in a cold voice, "Li Chongqing, you hid well just now. Otherwise, you would be a dead man now." Sacred Master. Chu Yang didn't know who Li Chongqing was, but everyone from the East Continent was shocked when they heard that. Then, they knelt down and said, "Greetings, Sacred Teacher." Only, their movements came to a sudden halt in an incomparably laughable manner. Just now, they didn't mishear, right? That person called Seema actually said that he was going to kill the sacred expert. Li Chongqing, also known as Saint Master, was the head of the Sky Academy. There was actually someone who wanted to kill the sacred sovereign. The people of the East Continent were in disbelief. Brother Seema, I made a rule that once people from the Eastern Wilderness pass the test, they can only enter the lower house. I don't mean any harm. I just want to protect them. The voice from the upper house of the Sky Court continued, You've seen the current situation of the Sky Court. If the disciples from the Eastern Wilderness can't survive in the lower house, it's even more impossible for them to survive in the upper house. Your explanation seems to be flawless. The young man sneered and said, Shame. You can absolve yourself of the death of those from the Eastern Wilderness, but now, this has nothing to do with you. You can get lost. Domineering, truly domineering. If he said that he wanted to kill you, he would kill you. If he said that he wanted you to get lost, he would ask you to get lost. How domineering! Chu Yang thought to himself, if I had the strength, I would definitely be like this. So what if you're the sacred expert? I can still make you as obedient as a dog. The people of the East Continent were extremely shocked. How dare this person speak to the sacred expert in such a tone? How dare he be so disrespectful? How dare he be so rebellious? From what he said, this person was clearly just a wild dog. How dare he order the sacred expert of the Sky Academy around and scold him at will? However, what shocked everyone in the East Continent was, Brother Seema, calm down. The sacred expert actually compromised in an extremely weak tone, for fear of angering the dog from the Eastern Wilderness in front of him. How could this be? How could this be? The people of the East Continent were in disbelief. Li Chongqing, it seems that you also want to die. The young man sneered. Those who humiliate the Eastern Wilderness will die. No one can escape. Just now, you gave a very good explanation, so I let you go. How dare you talk in front of me? Do you really think that I have a good temper? Buzz. Not to mention the people of the East Continent, even Chu Yang's head was buzzing. This was too aggressive. If a conflict broke out, it would be like one person fighting the entire Sky Academy alone. The consequences would be unimaginable. Chapter 1041. The Saint Master's voice disappeared. This shocked the people of the Eastern Continent, and made them even more alarmed. Which one of them didn't humiliate Chu Yang just now? Thump, thump, thump. The sovereign of the Lower Academy retreated in horror. He stepped in the void as if he was stepping on the ground and finally fell down. He smelled the aura of death, an incomparably thick aura of death that was even thicker than the aura of death on his body. I'll ask you one more time. Do you want to die by yourself or do you want me to kill you? The young man was emotionless and spoke coldly. Sima Jian, you can't kill me. I'm the head of the Lower Academy of the Sky Academy. If you want to kill me, you have to get the consent of the Saint Master and the other sages. You have no right to kill me. Sima Jian. Chu Yang finally knew who this incomparably domineering person was, and this name was deeply engraved in his mind. Of course, this Sima Jian was definitely not a young man. Those who humiliate the eastern wilderness will die. Chu Yang heard this sentence again. You violated this rule. Who else do I need to get permission to kill you? Even if the emperor dares to humiliate the eastern wilderness, I'll kill him. If anyone dares to do so, I'll kill them all. Every word was full of killing intent. The people of the East Continent who had just humiliated Chu Yang trembled after hearing this. The person in front of them was definitely a ruthless person. He even dared to kill the Saint Master. Who wouldn't he dare to kill? Domineering, too domineering. Senior Sima, please calm down. Boom. A loud noise came from the upper academy of the Sky Academy. Then a storm swept out, accompanied by a powerful aura. An old man appeared in the field. This old man looked like the head of the lower academy. His skin was like an old tree and his body was full of death chi. Like the head of the lower academy, he was also in the death spirit realm. Elixir Fire Sage. In the distance, Shangguanlan's face turned cold when she saw this old man. She had asked Shangguan Mei to ask for help from the Elixir Fire Sage. However, the Elixir Fire Sage had not come for a long time. Now, he suddenly appeared. She was immediately enraged, but she immediately understood the reason behind it, and her expression became even uglier. The Pill Fire Sage had a grandson. Not only was he extremely outstanding, but he was also very handsome. She guessed that he also had designs on her. Therefore, if she wanted to save Chu Yang had to die. You heartless old dog, the Shangguan clan shouldn't have saved you back then. At this time, Shangguanlan had the intention to kill. Even if Sage Dan Hua did not agree to save them, he should have told her clearly. However, he pretended to agree and kept her in the dark. He was extremely vicious. If not for the appearance of Senior Sima Jian from the eastern wilderness, Chu Yang would not have been able to escape today. Scram! The moment the Pill Fire Sage appeared, Sima Jian only said one word, which made the Pill Fire Sage freeze on the spot. Upon hearing this, the Pill Flame Sage was immediately infuriated. What kind of figure was he? Normally, everyone in the Sky Academy would treat him with respect, for fear of offending him. In addition, he was good at refining pills. Countless people had asked him for help. As long as he raised his arm and called for help, countless people would respond. His status was extremely high, but this wild dog from the eastern wilderness did not show him any respect at all. Senior Sima, being angry won't solve the problem. In fact, I originally intended to save the disciples in the eastern wilderness today, but Senior Sima appeared first. Shangguanlan's eyes turned cold again. She had never expected that a dignified sage from the Sky Academy would be so shameless. Did he expect her to testify for him later? The teachers of the Sky Academy were divided into levels: Saint Master, Sage, Great Master, Supreme Master, and Martial Master. Those who could have the title of Martial Master of the Sky Academy had extremely noble status, let alone Sage. However, the Pill Fire Sage was a teacher in vain. Damn old dog! Chapter 1042. It seems that you really want to die. Sima Jian didn't even look at him. But now, his eyes were as cold as swords as he stared at him. Sage Danhua was enraged. He could no longer maintain his dignity. Wild dog, I respect you as a senior, so I spoke nicely to you just now. Otherwise, you would have deserved to die for your disrespect to the sage teacher. This two-legged maggot is really stupid. The parrot said. It couldn't understand. Even the holy master of the Sky Academy was afraid of Sima Jian. How could this new guy be so presumptuous? Chu Yang nodded and said, he must have been kicked in the head when he went out today. He suddenly felt that he was something today. That's why he's so arrogant. Wild dog, how dare you? Buzz. Sima Jian's eyes suddenly emitted a terrifying light. The void shook. Whoosh. Then, he moved abruptly and appeared 100 meters away from the Pill-Fire Sage. He raised his hand and swung his sword. Suddenly, a net of swords appeared in the sky. It was an inescapable net. The moment Sima Jian attacked, Chu Yang felt that there was no light in the world. The sword god appeared and killed all gods and demons. What an amazing attack! What swordsmanship is this? Chu Yang was completely shocked. It was the first time he had seen such an amazing swordsmanship. The net of swords wasn't amazing. What was amazing was the moment Sima Jian attacked. It was an extremely short moment. At that moment Chu Yang was dazzled. He couldn't control himself. His mind was filled with the scene when Sima Jian attacked. His holy demon martial soul had already started to deduce. Clang! 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 The sword martial soul vibrated. Soon, a terrifying sword chi appeared on Chu Yang's body. Sima Jian was shocked. After he attacked, he didn't even look at the Pill-Fire Sage. Instead, he focused all of his attention on Chu Yang. This lad is indeed extraordinary. I don't know how long it took me to reach the beginner level of the Great Shock God Sword art. I don't even know how long it took me to cultivate it to the realm of returning to the origin. He actually comprehended it just by watching me use it once. Sima Jian was shocked again and again. In his impression, there had never been anyone with such a level of comprehension. Even among his group of old brothers who had died, there was definitely not a single one of them. Even the most famous Eastern wilderness in the Eastern continent could not compare. The Eastern wilderness. I'm afraid I'll have to rely on this kid in the future. I hope I can hold on until he grows up. The joy in Sima Jian's heart quickly turned into shock. He should have been a dead man. He was just hanging on to his last breath. Ah! A blood-curdling scream was heard. Because it was so mournful, even Chu Yang was alarmed. When he looked over, he saw the Pill-Fire Sage using a cauldron to block the sword net. Endless flames were spewing out from the cauldron in an attempt to burn the sword net, but it was useless. The sword net fell, cutting everything. In an instant, the cauldron was cut into many pieces and collapsed. Then, it fell down and cut the Pill-Fire Sage into pieces. The Pill-Fire Sage, a dead spirit realm expert, could not block Sima Jian's sword at all. Why are you looking at a dead dog? Have you comprehended all of my sword moves? Sima Jian angrily rebuked Chu Yang. Chu Yang did not dare to look at Sima Jian's sharp eyes. He said softly, I've comprehended about 50 to 60% of Senior's sword moves. 50 to 60%. Sima Jian sneered, Are you bragging in front of me? Chu Yang was speechless. He thought to himself, I've said too little. Fortunately, I didn't speak the truth. Sima Jian ignored Quanningjie and continued to teach Chu Yang a lesson. Quanningjie wanted to seize the opportunity to slip away silently, but a cold snort made him freeze on the spot. Did I say you could leave? Chapter 1043. The dignified master of the lower house of the Sky Academy knelt down in front of everyone and shamelessly begged for mercy. It was simply a disgrace to the Sky Academy, and it made people feel even more inferior. He was arrogant just now, but now he was like this. Not to mention Chu Yang and the others, even the people of the East Continent despised him. Sima Jian didn't bother to pay attention to Quanningjie at all. With a flick of his finger, a sword chi rushed into Chu Yang's body, and a sword intent and a sword manual poured into his mind at the same time. God-petrifying sword intent. God-petrifying sword art. At the same time, Chu Yang's aura also rose infinitely. In the end, his body actually emitted the aura of the life and death realm, and rolling death chi surged out of his body. Chu Yang closed his eyes and felt all of this. Not only did he replenish the life origin that he had lost previously, but now he even felt that he could control the life and death of others. When he operated the reincarnation magic, he felt incomparably smooth, and he even felt that he could directly send people into the 6 paths of reincarnation. Rumble. As he comprehended the reincarnation divine ability, his aura suddenly changed. Among the surging death aura, there was a trace of life aura. More and more life aura appeared, and it collided with the death aura, causing a loud explosion. Life chi, it was actually life chi. Chu Yang's death chi turned into life chi. Although it was still very little, Sima Jian was beside him and felt it very real. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to believe all of this. Because it was too unbelievable, Chu Yang actually mastered the mystery of life and death? How was this possible? Sima Jian couldn't maintain his demeanor at this moment. His eyes bulged and his mouth was wide open. He just temporarily raised Chu Yang's strength to be on par with the death realm. He really didn't expect that Chu Yang could turn death chi into life chi. In other words, if Chu Yang stepped into the life and death realm, he could directly break through from the death realm to the life realm. What kind of comprehension was this? This was a comprehension that made people curse. Luckily, Chu Yang was immersed in his comprehension and did not notice Sima Jian's shock. And this period of time was enough for Sima Jian to recover. "Go, slaughter that dog for me," he ordered. "Yes, Senior." Chu Yang stepped forward and said, "Old fart, are you going to commit suicide or do you want to dirty my hands?" It was basically the same as Sima Jian's lines, but Chu Yang was even more arrogant and ear-piercing than Sima Jian's. Quan Yingjia's face turned red. Sima Jian actually let a small wild dog kill him. He had seen the aura of death emanating from Chu Yang's body, and now he could sense that Chu Yang's realm had temporarily risen to the undead spirit realm. However, he did not notice that the aura of death emanating from Chu Yang's body had begun to turn into an aura of life. "I'm the Lord. The Lord is asking you a question. Why aren't you answering, you old bastard? Are you still so stubborn? Do you intend to continue offending the Lord?" Sima Jian's mouth twitched. Chu Yang was much more excessive than him, even calling out the Lord. "The ignorant are fearless. Go back, this old man doesn't want to hurt you right now." With Sima Jian present, Quan Yingjie did not dare to be impudent. "I'm the Lord. The Lord said that I'll kill you without any interference. The Lord said that you can be at ease and assassinate the Lord. Then, the Lord will grant you eternal life." Chu Yang pointed the sword in his hand at Quan Yingjie. "Old bastard, since the Lord has said so, you can make your move now." Quan Yingjie was so ashamed that he wanted to die. He was actually played by a junior like this. But when he thought of Sima Jian, all his anger, all his hatred, all his resentment, all of them disappeared. He continued to act like an expert. Chapter 1044. In the midst of his laughter, Sword Chi suddenly appeared behind Chu Yang like a peacock spreading its tail. It was vast and mighty, and there were layers upon layers of sword shadows. As soon as each sword shadow appeared, there was a kind of earth-shattering feeling. Clang! 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 Chu Yang became one with the sword, and a figure suddenly appeared behind him. It was as if a god had suddenly appeared in the mortal world to witness this shocking sword technique. The sword stabbed out and the sword light shocked the world. The sword god had descended. The sword chi rushed to the 9 heavens, and the cold light shone in all directions. Awakening God Sword Technique. This is the shocking divine sword technique. How did you learn the shocking divine sword technique? You learned it? Impossible. How could you learn the shocking divine sword technique in such a short period of time? Quan Yingjie was shocked, and his face completely changed color. He knew too well how terrifying the shocking divine sword technique was. Back then, he had been defeated by Sima Jian's frightening godly sword technique. He still harbored a grudge in his heart and could not forget it. Thus, when he saw Chu Yang's astonishing talent, He recalled the humiliation back then. That was why he had clenched his teeth and hated him so much. Not only was he shocked, Sima Jian was also frozen in place. This kid, not only was what he said true, but he was also holding back. 1. Dead spirit wall. The lower house master was shocked, and he hurriedly blocked. Death chi surged and intertwined, forming a wall of death chi, blocking in front of him. Shocking divine sword technique, 1,000 layers sword net. Chu Yang's sword technique immediately changed. A sword chi shot out from the tip of the sword, and it split into layers of sword light, forming a sword net that enveloped Quan Yingjie. This wild dog really learned the shocking divine sword technique. Quan Yingjie was extremely shocked. He raised his hand and grabbed, and the sword net was immediately torn apart. However, in an instant, Chu Yang's sword technique changed again. The sword net that was torn apart suddenly shrunk towards the center, and all the sword light gathered at one point, forming a sword wheel. This was Dongfang Che's sword technique, Great Sun Sword Wheel. Rumble. The sword wheel cut out, and a sharp whistling sound resounded. The sword light was incomparably dazzling. Quan Yingjie made his move, his death chi transforming into a wheel that collided with Chu Yang's attack. Suddenly, Chu Yang's sword technique changed again as he roared, godly shocking sword technique. Ascending dragon transformation. The sword wheel was just a feint. After Quan Yingjie reacted, the real killing move was revealed. The sword wheel suddenly changed, turning into a sword dragon, coiling up, madly twisting Quan Yingjie. The sword light kept flickering, extremely dazzling. Good, good, good. Sima Jian cheered in his heart and was overjoyed. What a genius! What a genius we have in the eastern wilderness! My great shock god sword technique. He can actually change it at will and even add other sword techniques into it. He was incomparably excited as he saw hope. As long as he could hold on until Chu Yang grew up, the eastern wilderness wouldn't have to worry about a lack of people. From Sima Jian's point of view, Chu Yang's swordsmanship had already reached the level of a peerless master of swordsmanship. Compared to the young Sima Jian and the young Eastern Wasteland, their group was much more powerful and shocking. However, this kind of sword technique wasn't enough to take Quan Yingjie's life. His eyes suddenly turned cold. He wasn't as good as Sima Jian, but how could he be inferior to a mere wild dog? In terms of battle techniques and life and death battles, how could Chu Yang have more experience than him? In terms of comprehension, how could the wild dog compare to him? Clang, clang, clang. The death chi formed an egg-shaped cover, enveloping him. The sword technique entangled his body, the sword dragon and the cover constantly colliding, the sound of swords clashing unceasingly. Then, Quan Yingjie made his move angrily. His hair and beard spread out, and his shriveled body suddenly expanded. His wrinkles disappeared, and his skin smoothed out, recovering its luster. His entire person was filled with the aura of life, and he suddenly became younger. Chapter 1045. In the center of the Qi field, a divine tree immediately grew. It was the tree of life that could only appear in the second layer of life and death realm. It represented life force and life force. At this moment, Quan Yingjie had actually broken through to the second layer of life and death realm. Sima Jian's pupils immediately shrank. He was somewhat worried. After all, he had only temporarily raised Chu Yang's cultivation base. However, it was only for a split second. Recalling how Chu Yang had turned death chi into life chi and seemed to have a deep understanding of life and death, he immediately dispelled the thought of attacking. Soon, the tree of life's illusory image suppressed that space, and the vast sword will was completely suppressed. The Lord said that this is very good. The Lord can practice his sword. Wrapped in the life saint domain, Chu Yang wasn't afraid at all. His whole body suddenly erupted with boundless sword light, and the 3,650 pores on his body gushed out intense sword intent. Numerous sword intents converged and soared into the sky. At this moment, he seemed to have stabbed out 10,000 times. Shocking divine sword art, 10,000 sword slash, 10,000 sword return. Clang, clang. In a short instant, Chu Yang had only stabbed out once. However, in the eyes of others, it seemed as if he had stabbed out 10,000 times. Clang, clang, clang. Chu Yang's sword technique changed again. When he said this sentence in a playful tone, everyone immediately felt the billowing devil aura in the void. It even produced some kind of invisible rhythm, as if it was a heavenly music. In an instant it drew people into an illusion, so much so that at this moment many people actually lost their sense of direction. What is this? Quan Yingjie's pupils trembled continuously. This was not the astounding divine sword technique that he was familiar with, but he felt a great sense of danger. Obscene sounds entered his ears, and to his astonishment, countless demons appeared in his spiritual world, tearing at his spirit. This is the frightening devil saber art. Chu Yang roared, "Die for me!" The sword in his hand transformed from spirit energy into a large saber and ruthlessly chopped down at Quan Yingjie. In the blink of an eye, a demonic shadow fell from the sky like a demon from outer space. It was stunned by Chu Yang's slash and fell from the sky towards Quan Yingjie. "You can't break my life sanctuary." Quan Yingjie roared as life energy surged out of him and into his life saint domain. Not only was his life saint domain restored, it was even more shocking than before. Rumble! The demonic shadow fell and stomped on the life saint domain, causing it to suddenly flatten. Clang! That's impossible! Didn't this wild dog just temporarily reach the undead spirit realm? How can he use life energy? Chapter 1046. However, Quan Yingjie was no longer able to say such a shocking thing. The moment the life saint domain was broken, the saber in Chu Yang's hand turned into a sword once again. Man and sword became one as the sword pierced through the sky like a white rainbow. His entire body was like a dragon snake. Life and death, yin and yang intersected to form a dragon-shaped curve. It wandered between life and death, reality and illusion. With a poochie sound, the sword pierced through Quan Yingjie's throat. Quan Yingjie let out a blood-curdling scream as he clutched his throat. Following that, death chi surged and his body melted, turning him into a skeleton. The skeleton further corroded and turned into a wisp of black smoke, completely disappearing. Dead. The lower house's sovereign hero was dead, killed by a wild dog. Soul Wheel Realm, Spirit Realm, Spirit Realm, Spirit Realm, Transcendence Realm, Nirvana Realm, and only after Nirvana Realm would one enter the Life and Death Realm. A Life and Death Realm expert was killed by someone at the peak of the Soul Wheel Realm? Although this Soul Wheel Realm expert's strength was temporarily raised to the Life and Death Realm, he didn't have the comprehension of the Spirit Fusion Realm, Transcendence Realm, Nirvana Realm, and Life and Death Realm. How could he kill a Life and Death Realm expert? The moment Chu Yang killed Quan Yingjie, everyone in the East Continent was stunned. Demon Shock Saber Art, this kid is really flexible. He actually changed my sword art into a saber art. Sima Jian's eyes flickered. That's not all. His Demon Shock Saber art seems to be even more powerful than my Demon Shock Divine Sword art. It seems like I still underestimated this kid. When I teach him a lesson, there's no need to be so polite. After all, he won't die easily. He naturally saw that Chu Yang not only had a sword martial spirit, but also a saber martial spirit. However, even if Chu Yang had a saber martial spirit, his talent was still too frightening. Boom! The power of the Life and Death Realm suddenly dispersed from Chu Yang's body. His aura fell all the way back to his original realm. Senior, fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. I didn't embarrass you. Chu Yang cupped his fists towards Sima Jian like a general returning victorious from a mission. Good, good. Sima Jian's words again. The more he looked at Chu Yang, the more he was satisfied with him. Master, you are heaven-defying, invincible, and lonely as snow. Long live my lord. The parrot was very excited. Just a moment ago, they were being chased by that old bastard Quan Yingjie. But now, that old bastard was actually killed by them. It was simply too happy. In the eastern wilderness, you're invincible and as lonely as snow. Cui Xinho, Hao Haodong, and Olajing also roared loudly. At this time, they did not feel that there was anything wrong with this sentence. The eastern wilderness? A look of reminiscence appeared on Sima Jian's face. At this moment, when he looked at Cui Xinho and the other two, he seemed to see himself in the past. When the eastern wilderness charged in front, they followed closely behind. Wherever the sword pointed, it could be said that no one could block it. The eastern wilderness, their leader, was defeated. The reason why he committed suicide was not because he lost confidence, but because he felt that he had lost the face and dignity of the eastern wilderness. He wanted to apologize with his death. Sima Jian's face bloomed. He thought to himself, a new eastern wilderness is born. In Sima Jian's view, the Chu Yang in front of him was completely worthy of the title of Eastern Wilderness. He could also bear the honor of the Eastern Wilderness and open a new world for the Eastern Wilderness. He needs time. The East Continent would not give Chu Yang time. There would be an endless stream of people coming to challenge him. There would be no time for him to breathe. Sima Jian's feelings towards this point were too unforgettable. If his good friend was the Eastern Wilderness, if he had enough time, how could he be defeated and commit suicide? The Eastern Wilderness, who carried the name of Eastern Wilderness, whether it was in the past or now, they only lacked time. Chapter 1047. For a moment, countless thoughts flashed through Sima Jian's mind. In the end, he finally made a decision. If I want to buy time for the Eastern Wilderness, I have to intimidate the people of the East Continent and make them not dare to be too presumptuous. After making up his mind, Sima Jian's sharp gaze immediately swept across the people of the East Continent. He said coldly, "You have insulted the Eastern Wilderness. You deserve to die." Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, it was earth-shattering. It was as if a shocking divine sword technique was displayed. Not to mention the people of the East Continent, even Chu Yang was shocked after hearing that. He was really shocked. There were at least hundreds of thousands of people in front of him. Was he going to kill all of them? In the distance, Shangguan Lan was also shocked. If that's the case, Brother Yang will really become the enemy of the East Continent. This hatred can't be washed away even with all the water in the 5 lakes and 4 seas. Senior, please spare us. Senior, please spare us. Senior, we won't dare to do it again. We won't dare to do it again. Senior, please let us go. We're just following the crowd. If we don't do this, we'll be ostracized. Senior, please show mercy. With a whoosh, everyone knelt down and begged for mercy. The scene was extremely spectacular. It was as if an army was kneeling down to their emperor. Among them, there were already many people who were crying out of fear. Brother Sima, they're just a bunch of children. The sage master's voice floated down from the upper house again. They're children, that's right. Sima Jian coldly swept his gaze across the people of the East Continent. His voice was incomparably cold. But Li Chongqing, you didn't teach them well, so they became beasts. I only killed beasts, not children. He directly refuted the sage master's words. The so-called excuse of children was completely useless to Sima Jian. Ruthless, he was definitely a ruthless person. Those who insulted the Eastern Wilderness would die. This was definitely not a lie or an empty sentence. It was bloody, a matter of life and death. Chu Yang's heart trembled. He did not know what Sima Jian had experienced to be so cold-blooded, but it must have been extremely cruel. However, if they started this massacre, the East Continent would definitely be intimidated. Before the people of the East Continent humiliated the Eastern Wilderness, they would at least have to think twice. However, using such cold-bloodedness in exchange for the respect of others, and even losing his humanity, was too pitiful. At this moment, Chu Yang naturally didn't understand Sima Jian's painstaking efforts. However, it was true that the East Continent played an important role in Sima Jian's decision. Brother Sima, there are 6 academies in the East Continent. Even if you kill everyone in the Sky Academy, there are still 5 academies. Then let's keep killing until no one in the East Continent dares to humiliate the Eastern Wilderness. Sima Jian said coldly, I don't believe that the sword in my hand can't create a world in the Eastern Wilderness. So what if I kill everyone in the Eastern Continent? The sage sovereign let out a long sigh. Brother Sima, your murderous nature is too strong. Moreover, there are many capable people in the East Continent. Brother Sima might not be able to kill them all. Ha ha! Sima Jian laughed loudly. Am I too murderous, or is it because the East Continent has gone too far? The sage sovereign instantly fell silent. How long has it been since my brother's Eastern Wilderness? Sima Jian originally only wanted to buy time for Chu Yang. However, when he thought of the past scenes, the sadness, blood, and tears, his murderous aura instantly surged, and his killing intent became even more unshakable. I've given the East Continent time, but the situation is getting worse. Even though my brothers have risked their lives to block the invasion of the demons from beyond the heavens for the sake of the people in the East Continent, and all of them died, they didn't win the slightest bit of respect. If I don't kill, I won't be able to vent the hatred in my heart. If I don't kill, I won't be able to restore the reputation of the Eastern Wilderness. If I don't kill, you won't know fear. Chapter 1048. Save us, Sage Master! Save us, Sage Master! Sage Master, we won't do it again! Cries and begging for mercy filled the air. Brother Sima, if you want to kill these kids, I have to stop you no matter what. The sage sovereign's voice drifted over from the upper house again. You can only blame yourself for the matter between the East Continent and the Eastern Wilderness. Other than Brother Sima and your illustrious reputation, no one else was able to stop the East Continent from humiliating the Eastern Wilderness. Ha ha! Sima Jian had to admit that this was indeed the case. If someone else from the Eastern Wilderness followed them and continued to intimidate the East Continent, no one would dare to humiliate the Eastern Wilderness. If they weren't strong enough and couldn't continue, they would kill them until they were terrified. Sima Jian was even more determined to kill them, so he laughed loudly. Li Chongqing, my intention was to kill you to show my power. Now it's the best time for you to deliver your head to me. New students from the Eastern Wilderness are not allowed to enter the upper house. My intention was to protect the students from the Eastern Wilderness. Brother Sima, why don't you believe me? The sage master sighed again. Sima Jian sneered. Li Chongqing, is this all you can do to protect the students from the Eastern Wilderness? As he spoke, he pointed his long sword at the upper house. Sky Academy, the East Continent humiliated the Eastern Wilderness. If the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. By making such a rule, you set an example and humiliated the Eastern Wilderness. How dare you say such high-sounding words in front of me? Li Chongqing, you really deserve to die. Chu Yang's pupils shrank when he heard this. It was indeed so. The rule that the people from the Eastern Wilderness could only enter the Chore's yard at the beginning when they entered the Sky Academy was to protect the people from the Eastern Wilderness. However, as the master of the Sky Academy, he set such an example and made such a rule to humiliate the Eastern Wilderness. How could he not make others follow? Brother Sima, this is the situation in the eastern wilderness in the East Continent. It doesn't make a difference whether I'm there or not. I've weighed the pros and cons before making such a rule. Chu Yang's brows furrowed again. This was also reasonable. If he truly had good intentions, then the sacred teacher was worthy of admiration. However, if he was a hypocrite, then this sacred teacher was simply a hypocrite to an unknown degree. Cut the crap. Li Chongqing, since you want to stop me, then make your move. Sima Jian's sword hummed as he said coldly, I will kill you first, then I will slaughter all of them. Chu Yang was extremely anxious. Without caring about anything else, he stepped in and said, Senior, it's not worth it. 1. Sima Jianling immediately stared at Chu Yang, like a ferocious tiger that was about to devour a human. Even more so, he was like a god of death that suddenly stared at Chu Yang, taking him as his target. Chu Yang didn't avoid his gaze and directly met it. Senior, our eastern wilderness still needs to become a murderous demon, a beast, to win respect. This isn't winning respect for the eastern wilderness, this is humiliating the eastern wilderness. The moment Chu Yang stood out, the heart of Shangguan Lan in the distance shook. Her eyes immediately blurred and she murmured, Brother Yang. After not seeing Chu Yang for more than 10 years, not only did Chu Yang not disappoint her, but he had become even more responsible and outstanding. Chu Yang was still that young Chu Yang, the person who could make her forget her fear once she thought of him. It was like that in the past, it was like that now. It had never changed. If you don't kill, can you do it? Can you make the eastern wilderness no longer be discriminated against and bullied in the East Continent? Sima Jian roared, and his questions drilled straight into Chu Yang's heart, causing his heart to turn upside down and his mind to buzz. He smiled bitterly in his heart and couldn't help but ask himself, can I do it alone? With the Destiny Twins' martial spirits, maybe I can. Chapter 1049. Senior, I can do it. Chu Yang said loudly and powerfully. Louder. Sima Jian roared again. Stick out your chest and look into my eyes. I'll ask you one more time, can you do it? Chu Yang straightened his back in an instant. He stood upright like a javelin in the air. Then, he boldly opened his mouth and roared, Senior, I can. Facing Sima Jian's gaze, Chu Yang did not waver at all, but he was actually very guilty. What if you can't do it? Sima Jian retracted his killing intent. His voice was filled with loneliness. Senior, you don't have to worry. Chu Yang said with confidence. The eastern wilderness is definitely not just the eastern wilderness, and there is definitely not just one Chu Yang. After us, there will be many eastern wilderness, many Chu Yangs. Senior, we have never been alone, and we have never fought alone. Good, ha ha. Sima Jian laughed loudly again. Well said, I believe you. We have never been alone, we have never fought alone. This made Sima Jian's heart warm and excited. He saw hope in Chu Yang, and he should not lose faith in his hometown. Let's go. After that, Sima Jian's spiritual energy swirled and brought Chu Yang and the others directly into the upper academy of the sky. They disappeared into a certain place and completely disappeared. Looking at the direction Chu Yang left, Shangguan Lan did not regain her senses for a long time. Chu Yang made her heart sway, and she could not control herself. Looking at the excited Chu Yang, she was intoxicated. I'm alive, I'm finally alive. I'm alive, I'm alive. There were cries and angry shouts. Once Sima Jian left, the fear that had been suppressing everyone's hearts disappeared. Many of them were frantically venting their emotions. They really felt as if they had just taken a trip to the gates of hell. Sima Jian was too terrifying, causing every single one of them to feel suffocated and terrified. Chu Yang is my benefactor. If I scold him again in the future, I'm not human. There are heroes in the eastern wilderness. This Chu Yang is a hero among heroes. To be honest, I really admire him. He's more than just a genius. It's simply unimaginable. His realm had only risen to life and death realm for a short period of time, yet he was able to kill a true life and death realm expert. How many people in the Eastern continent could do this? Chu Yang's actions had won the approval of many people in the East continent. Looking at this scene, the smile on Shangguanlan's face was extremely beautiful. It seemed that nothing could make her happier than this. Miss, come back to your senses, we have to go, there are many flies rushing over. When Shangguan Mei spoke, Shangguanlan screamed. Her face was so red that it was redder than the red bird on her shoulder. The red bird thought, "It's hopeless, it's completely hopeless." However, the red bird also approved of Chu Yang, the guy who had dug out the bird's nest when he was a child. Compared with those disgusting things in the Sky Academy, Chu Yang seemed to be more pleasing to the eye. As a result, the red sparrow's view of the parrot had changed greatly. The red bird noticed the change in its heart and immediately shook its head. Am I confused? What's the difference between me and Miss? No, this is not right. Behind it, the red bird thought to itself, Little Yang Yang, you've talked big, but it's hard to say whether you can do it. I'll wait and see. Chapter 1050. Chu Yang from the eastern wilderness was besieged by those from the east continent of the inner yard. He first fought Gongsun Ing, then Dongfang Che, and killed both of them, which attracted the attention of the lower yard. The appearance of merciless Sima Jian, who had dominated the entire Heaven Impasse, tried to kill the Saint Master, killed the Elixir Fire Sage, and used Chu Yang to kill the Sovereign of the Lower Academy. Each of these matters was earth-shattering and instantly shook the entire Sky Academy. The Sky Academy was in an uproar. Those who humiliate the eastern wilderness will die. This sentence was quickly heard by the people of the Sky Academy, and it resounded in their hearts. Sima Jian became the center of the storm, and so did Chu Yang and the others. For a moment, the Sky Academy was in an uproar and couldn't stop. Sima Jian and the others are the group of merciless people from the eastern wilderness. Back then, the East continent was bathed in blood. I didn't expect that one of them is still alive. The Elixir Fire Sage is so ignorant. How dare he provoke such a merciless person? He really thinks highly of himself. I think he doesn't know how powerful this group of merciless people is. Not to mention the East continent, they can even resist the extraterrestrial demons. If it weren't for them, the East continent would have been invaded by the extraterrestrial demons. I think the sovereign hero of the lower yard is the most shameful. As the head of the lower yard, he didn't handle it fairly and angered such a merciless person. Hundreds of thousands of people in the East continent almost died because of this. After learning the whole story, the people of the Sky Academy despised the Elixir Fire Sage and the head of the lower yard. How dare they be so presumptuous when a merciless person appeared? They really didn't know how to spell the word death. Of course, the discrimination between the East continent and the Eastern wilderness didn't disappear. It just calmed down temporarily and became dormant. This is a disgrace to the East continent. Sima Jian is just a wild dog, but he made the entire Sky Academy silent. Chu Yang is a wild dog. If I have the chance, I'll definitely tell him the difference between the East continent and the Eastern wilderness. I'm not as useless as Dongfang Che and Gongsun Ing. How could I lose to a wild dog? The old one lost, and so did the young one. The East continent has really lost face. Keep your voice down. If the vicious wild dog hears you, even the sage teacher won't be able to save you. In the Sky Academy, no one dared to approach the Elixir Fire Palace where the Elixir Fire Sage resided within 100 meters of the palace. Shocking anger was being vented madly inside. The hall was in a complete mess. Among them was a young man in green. He was extremely handsome, but at this moment, his face was filled with a ferocious expression. His chest was heaving up and down because of his rage. the grandson of the Pill Fire Sage, Shao Chang'e. He never thought that it would end up like this. Not only did he not kill the wild dog Chu Yang, but he also offended Shangguanlan. Even his grandfather, who he relied on, died tragically. Shooting himself in the foot was not enough to describe Shao Chang'e's pain. It was not a rare thing that he adored Shangguanlan. Everyone in the Sky Academy knew that. Therefore, everyone knew that he regarded Shangguanlan as his exclusive property. Any man who came into contact with her or Shangguanlan had a good impression of him would all die if he was not strong enough. This time, Shangguanlan even asked his grandfather to save her because of a wild dog. How could he bear it? Therefore, even if he offended Shangguanlan, he still wanted to kill Chu Yang, the wild dog. Because of him, the Elixir Fire Sage did not save Chu Yang. In the end, he stood on the side of the sovereign of the lower house and was killed. One reason was that his grandfather did not know how powerful he was. But if it were not for Shao Chang'e, his grandfather would not have died. Chu Yang, you wild dog! I must tear you into pieces. Chapter 1051. On the other side of the Sky Court, it was almost a world of its own. Demonic chi surged, and Chu Yang couldn't see anything more than 3 meters in front of him. This was the Sky Court, a sealed secret realm. The space-time tunnel between the various deities' world and the heavenly spirit world was also here. As soon as Chu Yang stepped in, he immediately smelled the smell of blood, as well as an extremely tragic aura. He even faintly heard many wails. In an instant it was as if he had entered hell. However, this surging demonic chi wasn't actually demonic chi. It faintly hid the great Tao of another world. Being trapped here was like being a prisoner in a prison. I can feel it. This is an excellent place for cultivation. You can comprehend the great Tao of another world, which is very beneficial for cultivation. Sima Jian said, different worlds have different heavens and earth, but they all lead to the same destination. They are essentially the same. By comprehending the great Tao of heaven and earth of other worlds, and then coming back to comprehend the great Tao of our world, we will gain great insight. The surging demonic chi was like a prisoner, a villain. Many secrets could be obtained from them. The great Tao of another world couldn't be hidden here, and everything could be analyzed. However, it wasn't that easy to comprehend it. This shouldn't be a problem for me. Just as this thought surfaced in Chu Yang's mind, he heard Sima Jian open his mouth and say to the Cui Xinho trio, the 3 of you will cultivate here in the future. If you are unable to comprehend anything, I will directly throw all of you into the seal and allow your flesh and soul to fuse with the great array and become part of the seal. Cui Xinho and the other 2 were shocked, but they didn't dare to complain. They said respectfully, yes, senior. Isn't this a little too ruthless? Chu Yang muttered inwardly. Sima Jian's sharp eyes were staring at him coldly. At this moment, he could see Sima Jian very clearly. This was a face that seemed to have been chiseled by knives and axes. It was as if all the ups and downs of life were written on it. His aura was not powerful at all. To be exact, it was extremely weak. It was like an oil lamp swaying in the wind, ready to be extinguished at any moment. Chu Yang instantly understood Sima Jian's strictness. The reason why he was so strict was probably because he wouldn't be able to hold on for long. At that time, no one would be able to protect them, and they could only rely on themselves. Go to the 7-wheel demon domain. If you can't reach the peak of the spirit stage, then you can die there. There's no need for you to return. Chu Yang had such an understanding in his heart. He simply could not feel Sima Jian's strictness. However, from Sima Jian's tone, he could hear that the 7-wheel demon domain was definitely an extremely terrifying place. His eyelids twitched. The parrot also felt it, and immediately said, Master, you need to go to the 7 wheels demon realm, which is a heaven-sent martial artist, but this place suits me. Little bird, you go too. The parrot's head drooped down. It seemed to have lost its spirit. It shouted in its heart, "The East Continent is too dangerous. I want to go back to the Eastern Wilderness." Senior, is the seven-wheeled demonic domain very dangerous? Chu Yang asked carefully. He was a little nervous in his heart. What do you think? Sima Jian sneered. The ancient demonic sect that once ruled the East Continent suddenly had an object fall from the sky and destroyed the entire ancient demonic sect. It is said that the object that fell from the sky was a demonic corpse. After that, that place became the seven-wheel demon domain. If you can speak properly, can't you say that a demonic corpse fell from the sky and destroyed an extremely powerful demonic sect? Chapter 1052. Senior, can you be more specific? Chu Yang did not feel like resisting. Since Sima Jian wanted him to go to the seven-wheel demon domain, he definitely had his own reasons. I've been very specific and detailed. Chu Yang nearly collapsed. However, Sima Jian continued to speak. No one has the ability to prove whether or not it is a demon corpse. However, one thing is certain. The seven-wheel demon domain is extremely beneficial to spirit stage martial artists. The reason why the Seven Wheels Devilish Domain is called the Seven Wheels Devilish Domain is not only because of the devilish chi, devilish creatures, and giant devils, but also because it looks like the Seven Wheels Devilish Domain is aligned with the arrangement of the seven wheels in the body. That is why it is called the Seven Wheels Devilish Domain. Humans have 3 souls and 7 spirit. The 7 spirits are as follows. 1 spirit is Tianchong, 2 spirits are Ling Hui, 3 spirits are Qi, 4 spirits are Power, 5 spirits are Core, 6 spirits are Essence, and 7 spirits are Ying. The soul referred to Jingsheng, who could still exist after leaving his body, and the soul referred to the spirit that was attached to his body. To put it simply, one's soul was based on one's physical body. Once one died, one's soul would also disappear. This meant that when people died, their 7 physical souls would disperse first, and then their 3 spiritual souls would leave. The 7 souls, in fact, were located on the middle meridian of the human body from the top of the head to the Huyin acupoint under the crotch. Among them, the Tianchong spirit was at the crown chakra, the Ling Hui spirit was at the glabella chakra, the Qi spirit was at the throat chakra, and the strength spirit was at the heart chakra. At the same time, they were connected to the palms and soles of the feet. The central spirit was in the umbilical chakra, the essence spirit was in the reproductive chakra, and the heroic spirit was in the undersea chakra. The soul reincarnation realm was a realm where one could cultivate 7 chakras and 7 energy fields based on these 7 souls. Hence, it was called the soul reincarnation realm. It could be said that Chu Yang did not have much contact with this realm. He had skipped it. The reason for this was actually very simple. If one's physical body was strong, the 7 souls would naturally manifest. On the other hand, if the physical body was not strong, the 7 souls would be hidden. The soul reincarnation stage was actually a preparation for the spirit stage. For an ordinary person, it was impossible for their physical body to be strong enough to allow the 7 fragments to appear. Therefore, they needed to cultivate to the 7th soul reincarnation stage in order to allow the 7th soul reincarnation stage to appear. The reason why Chu Yang had skipped this stage was because his physical body was strong enough. He had 200 dragon strength, so his 7 spirits could appear on their own. He did not need to condense the 7 great wheel spirits, and his 7 spirits could appear. As a result, his destiny twin martial soul skipped this stage. Instead of condensing the soul wheel, it became creating the world. Therefore, although he seemed to have cultivated to the soul reincarnation stage, the strength of his physical body did not increase. Only when he reached the spirit stage and the 7 fragments began to appear would he be able to level up. Obviously, Sima Jian had discovered that Chu Yang was different from the rest, which was why he had chosen him to go to the 7-wheel demon domain. If the seven-wheeled demonic realm had really smashed down a demonic corpse, then this demonic sovereign would have been extremely terrifying before he died. The seven-wheel soul in his body would also be the best reference for Chu Yang. As for the seven wheels demonic realm, it was certain that it would be incomparably dangerous. Chu Yang cared about it, but he had no choice but to risk it. The eastern wilderness's situation in the East Continent was one of the reasons. The most important reason was Shangguan Lan. At Chu Yang's critical moment, a woman exclaimed. Who else could it be but Shangguan Lan when she heard the words, Brother Yang? Aside from Shangguan Lan, who else in the East Continent would care about his life? His big brother was saved by Shangguan Lan. When he was in a life and death situation, she had appeared. There was no need to guess her feelings. However, why didn't she dare to appear? It wasn't difficult for Chu Yang to find the answer to this question. In the previous battle, the beauty he saw was definitely Shangguan Lan. Although he did not see her face, he could determine that Shangguan Lan was a peerless beauty just by looking at her figure. A peerless beauty would naturally not lack admirers. However, her admirers were Chu Yang's pursuers, the slaughterer. At least, from Chu Yang's point of view, this was the reason why Shangguan Lan did not appear. Shangguan Lan was afraid that Chu Yang would suffer because of her. This was intolerable. He was a dignified man, but his fiancée, and even his future wife, did not dare to see him. How laughable and sad was this! Chapter 1053. Not only did the seven-wheeled demonic domain contain the secrets of the seven souls, it also contained many peerless techniques, artifacts, and countless treasures. Therefore, it wasn't only the soul reincarnation realm or spirit realm that went there. The soul fusion realm, transcendence realm, nirvana realm, and even sages went there. The 6 great academies of the Eastern Continent, the 1,000 Demon Sect, various sects, aristocratic families, and rogue cultivators all went to the seven-wheeled demonic domain every day. Countless people died in the seven-wheeled demonic domain every day, causing demons to go there to collect flesh, souls, and even corpses. The various dangerous and strange places in the seven-wheeled demonic domain were only one of the dangers. Man-made disasters were even more dangerous. The battles and fights between people were even more tragic. Most of the people who died in the seven-wheeled demonic domain were killed by others, and not by the dangers and strange places of the seven-wheeled demonic domain. Within it, powerful experts would frequently appear. Therefore, it would be extremely dangerous for Chu Yang, who was only at the peak of the soul reincarnation realm, to go there alone. Sima Jian explained the seven-wheeled demonic domain clearly, and Chu Yang didn't have the slightest resistance towards going to the seven-wheeled demonic domain. Chu Yang could be said to be unparalleled in the eastern wilderness. However, it might be because the true geniuses and monsters didn't bother to fight with him. After all, the eastern wilderness was like a well, and they were all frogs at the bottom of the well. Those geniuses might have already gone to the Eastern Continent. In the Eastern Continent, Chu Yang didn't think that he was truly invincible in the same realm. Although he had the heaven-defying Destiny Twins martial spirits, he wasn't the only one in the Eastern Continent who had such a shocking martial spirit. A person must have pride and arrogance, but they must not be blind. They must not be arrogant, and they must not look down on themselves. They must not feel inferior, and they must not feel inferior to others. They must not be servile or overbearing, and they must be humble and courteous. This was Chu Yang's way of life. Time waits for no man. Senior, please send me to the seven-wheeled demonic domain. Chu Yang spoke, causing the parrot to almost fall from his shoulder. Sima Jian's eyes flashed with a strange light. Chu Yang didn't need his urging. Perhaps this kid can really fulfill his promise and carry the name of the Eastern Wilderness on his back. Sima Jian still didn't look happy. Don't embarrass me when you go to the Seven Wheels Demon Realm, and don't embarrass us in the Eastern Wilderness. Chu Yang smiled and did not take it to heart. Sima Jian had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. Senior, don't worry. If you want to humiliate the eastern wilderness, you'll have to step over my dead body first. However, his cowardly attitude had managed to trick Cui Xinhou and the other two. They no longer felt that staying here to cultivate was a chore, and meeting Chu Yang's requirements was definitely not a difficult task. After all, Chu Yang actually wanted to go to the incomparably dangerous Seven Wheels Dark Domain. Compared to Chu Yang, they were nothing. For a moment, the three of them were incomparably excited and full of vigor. They could not wait to start cultivating right away. Immediately they went. Sima Jian was even more swift and decisive. He left Cui Xinhou and the other two in the sealed place, and took Chu Yang to the Sky Academy's teleportation formation, sending Chu Yang directly to the Seven Wheels Demon Realm. Chu Yang was now very familiar with the teleportation formation's teleportation. There was nothing strange about it. However, when he was teleported out, he did not directly appear at the edge of the Seven Wheels Demon Realm, nor was he directly teleported into the Seven Wheels Demon Realm. Seven Wheels City. It was a city that existed because of the Seven Wheels Demon Realm. When Chu Yang appeared here, he immediately suffered great discrimination because of his identity in the eastern wilderness. However, this was not a good place. The wild dog's voice was constantly heard, but no one rashly killed him. Chapter 1054. Is that the Seven-Wheel Demon Realm? Chu Yang left the Seven-Wheel City. After flying for half a day, he finally arrived at his destination. At this time, the sun was hanging high in the sky. The sunlight was very hot, but when he looked down, he saw that it was extremely gloomy and dark. Looking further, he could clearly see the broken mountains and rivers. Demon Chi, and Death Chi were rolling into gloomy clouds. Just looking at the gloomy clouds made him feel uncomfortable. He could imagine how dangerous it was. Whoosh! Suddenly, a gust of cold wind blew over, followed by surging Devil Chi. Devil clouds flew over, and in an instant, a rain of blood poured down. At the same time, a blood-curdling scream came from the Devil Cloud. Suddenly, a huge white skull flew down from the Devil Cloud. This white skull seemed to be made of many human bones. It was pale white. Not only were there blood stains on it, but there was also rotten flesh. It was terrifying to look at. Then, it opened its big mouth and tried to bite Chu Yang. The parrot immediately sprang into action. It let out a roar, and then spat out a colorful river from its mouth. Shockingly, it was a majestic snow-capped mountain, upon which was a temple. The devil dragon was suppressed beneath the mountain, as well as a wheel of swords. This was Gongsun Ying's combination martial soul and Dongfang Che's sword wheel. If Gongsun Ying and Dongfang Che came back from the dead, they would be scared out of their wit. This parrot had learned it just by watching them. The parrot had learned 80% of it at most, but when it used it, the power was still amazing. Bang bang bang! The muffled sound was endless. The snow mountain crashed, the temple suppressed, and endless golden light burst out. There was even the sound of Buddha. The temple and Buddha's light were obviously very effective against the white skull. In addition, the demonic dragon pounced and the sword wheel slashed. The power was extremely shocking. But what was more shocking was that the skull, which was made of countless human bones, was extremely hard. When the snow mountain crashed into it, it was the snow mountain that collapsed. The attacks of the demonic dragon and the sword will only cut a few huge white bones. The suppression of the temple was obvious. Under the golden light, the white bones were corroded and emitted white smoke. However, that was all. The white bones that were cut off turned into black smoke and entered the skull. The skull shook again and emitted black smoke. It was restored immediately. What is this? A demon from the East Continent's Thousand Demon sect? Chu Yang saw that the situation was not good. He flapped the wings on his back and immediately flew away. His speed was extremely fast, but the giant skull refined from countless white bones was also extremely fast. It followed closely behind, opening its mouth and letting out a soundless ghostly cry as it pounced over. What is the cultivation level of the demon that attacked me? Why is the demon chi so terrifying? As soon as they made contact with each other, the billowing devilish energy began to corrode their bodies. It was extremely domineering. Their clothes began to corrode, and their skin began to lose its luster. In fact, it even tore their skin open and began to suck out their blood. Not only that, Chu Yang even felt that the spiritual qi in his body was being sucked away. The giant skull had not touched him and the parrot, but it was already in such a situation. He was sure that if he was bitten or swallowed by the skull, he would die a horrible death. Demonic martial soul. As soon as Chu Yang activated his devil martial spirit, the devil chi that invaded his body was immediately like an army that had just broken into a city. When they saw their supreme commander, they immediately surrendered and didn't dare to act presumptuously. Chapter 1055. This young master is the devil. Chu Yang was enraged. If he didn't have the devil martial spirit, he would have died. Demonic chi surged and condensed into the devil flying dagger. With a whoosh it shot out. The flying dagger traversed the sky like a black lightning bolt. It was extremely fast and instantly approached the skull. The silent skull was pierced through. Although the devil's flying dagger was pitifully small compared to the huge skull, just this one strike was enough to cause the entire skull to explode. The skulls and bones were blasted out one after another with a loud bang. Then, they turned into black smoke, and the screams of tens of thousands of people could be heard from the black smoke. It made Chu Yang's scalp tingle. Go! Chu Yang wasn't sure of the strength of the devil that ambushed him. He didn't dare to stay. The wings on his back flapped crazily as he quickly fled. He descended from the sky and immediately drilled into the mountains, disappearing without a trace. Just as he disappeared, the sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. A devil appeared and looked at the direction Chu Yang fled in astonishment. A mere wild dog actually escaped from me, Lan Qingyue? This so-called Lan Qingyue was a pale-faced middle-aged man with a gloomy appearance. He held a blood banner in his hand. Demonic chi surged from it and many ghostly figures appeared. Countless ghostly cries could be heard. Lan Qingyue's gaze was incomparably sharp. He scanned the surroundings and continuously released his divine sense. However, he couldn't find any trace of Chu Yang. He said hatefully, "Wild dog, consider yourself lucky that you ran fast. This seven-wheel demonic domain is too dangerous. It's not good to pursue. Otherwise, I wouldn't have let you off today. Senior brother Lan, you actually let a mere wild dog escape after killing him. I'm panicking from the side. Our bone devil sex face is completely lost because of you." Suddenly, a burst of laughter rang out. Lan Qingyue's face flushed red and was boiling hot. She was furious and wanted to kill someone. However, when she looked towards the source of the laughter, she saw a bald man striding over. He was extremely sturdy and tall. His muscles bulged and were filled with surging strength. It was as if he could move mountains and grab the moon with just a raise of his hand. "Huang Qingtian, if you hadn't been hiding nearby, I wouldn't have had to worry about your sneak attack. How could I have failed?" When Lan Qingyue saw Huang Qingtian, he was extremely vigilant. He secretly activated the blood banner in his hand and was extremely vigilant. He was definitely not joking. Although the two of them both belonged to the Bone Devil sect, they were still scheming against each other in the sect, let alone in the Seven-Wheel Devil region. The bald man, Huang Qingtian, stared at the blood banner. He didn't hide the greed in his eyes as he chuckled. "Senior brother Lan, your luck is indeed amazing. You actually managed to pick up such a blood banner while collecting bones in the Seven Wheels demonic area. However, senior brother, What you practice is the devil sex white bone technique. This blood banner is clearly a precious artifact that absorbs blood essence. It's not suitable for you. Why don't you let me have it? Give it to you? Impossible. Lan Qingyue sneered. I obtained this blood banner by chance in the Seven Wheels demonic area. It must be extremely extraordinary. I'm afraid that there are secrets within it. If I can comprehend it, my cultivation will definitely advance to the next level and break through to the transcendence realm. Why would I let you have it? That's impossible. Huang Qingtian smacked his lips. Killing intent surged in his heart. He really wanted to kill Lan Qingyue and snatch the blood banner. However, with the blood banner in Lan Qingyue's hand, he was probably no match for him. Why, Huang Qingtian, do you want to fight? Lan Qingyue was also extremely wary of Huang Qingtian. He suddenly unfurled the blood banner in his hand. I haven't fully comprehended this blood banner. I haven't been able to fully display its power. Why don't you help me comprehend it? Senior brother, you must be joking. Huang Qingtian was really wary of the blood banner. He laughed loudly and left in a flash. Lan Qingyue looked at his back and his figure suddenly flashed and immediately disappeared. Seeing the dangers of the Seven Wheels demonic area is really better than hearing about it 100 times. Chu Yang was secretly watching the two demons leave. He felt that it was a pity. The two demons were at LV9 and LV8 of the Soul Amalgamation Realm. If they were to fight, he would be able to take advantage of them. With a sneak attack, the two demons would definitely not be able to escape from his grasp. I have to be careful. I'm in the East Continent now, not the Eastern Wilderness. I can't fly casually in the air. It was too conspicuous in the sky, and it was very easy to attract the enemy's attack. If he was careless, he would be killed. It wasn't that Chu Yang didn't understand. It was just that he was used to being in the Eastern Wilderness. That was why he had made such a stupid mistake. At the same time, he had been ambushed before entering the Seven Wheels demonic area. Seeing the scheming between the two demons, he was deeply aware of the cruelty of this place. Chapter 1056. Chu Yang did not venture deep into the Seven Wheels demon realm. Instead, he wandered around the periphery to familiarize himself with the situation here. Unknowingly, the sun had set in the west. Immediately, he frowned. The Seven Wheels demon realm is indeed very dangerous. I'm afraid it's even more dangerous at night. No, I have to find a place to stay first. Chu Yang visualized the Void Martial Soul and used the Devil Martial Soul at the same time. Then, he began to search for a place to stay at night. Along the way, he saw many students from the 6 great academies of the East Continent in the Seven Wheels demon realm. There were many devils and all kinds of rogue cultivators, but they could not find Chu Yang. Visualizing the Void Assassin Martial Soul, he was like an assassin. He hid in the void and could not be seen at all. In addition, the devil aura emitted by the Devil Martial Soul made him one with the environment of the Seven Wheels demon realm. It was more mysterious than any invisibility spell. Soon, he found a place with less devil chi. It seemed to be a mine of the Seven Wheels demon realm. The mine had been dug out. At a glance, it was dark and he did not know how deep it was. He flew up into the sky. The mine extended into the mountains of the Seven Wheels demon realm. The devil chi filled the air and soon blocked his vision. Looking down at the entire mine, although it was shrouded in devil chi, he could see it clearly with his eyesight. While flying in the air, Chu Yang had already put on the evil demon armor for precaution. 2 rays of light shot out from the 2 suns. These 2 rays of light seemed to be able to see through the heavens above and the underworld below. It was said that the eyes of the Supreme Devil God could see through layers of space, various space-time dimensions, dimensional spaces, endless hells, various ancient space-time, great thousand worlds, and the number of dust particles. Even if Chu Yang had the demon god, he still couldn't do this. It was impossible for him to see through the void. However, he could still see through some of the devil clouds to see if there were any strange things in the surroundings and if there were any hidden devils. Since someone was able to mine here before, I think it should be safe. Chu Yang confirmed that he would be staying here tonight, so he landed and began to arrange the array formation. By the time he was done, the sky had already turned completely dark. The night in the Seven Wheels demonic domain was especially dark. It was so dark that one couldn't even see one's own fingers. In the darkness there were all sorts of ghostly cries, beastly roars, demonic sounds, as well as all sorts of screams and wails. This made the pitch-black Seven Wheels demonic domain seem even more sinister. After settling down, Chu Yang began to cultivate. His strongest trump card was the divine devil martial spirit. Sword of light, wings of light, armor of light, spear of darkness, wings of darkness, armor of darkness. The godly demon martial spirit's ability could change light and darkness according to Chu Yang's will. The angels and demons that evolved into angel swords, demon swords, and so on were obviously much stronger than the sword of light and the sword of darkness, but this did not mean that angels were stronger than light and demons were stronger than darkness. Angels were subordinate to light and demons were subordinate to darkness. They were the specific characteristics of light and darkness. Therefore, they were stronger. And Chu Yang was also gradually comprehending light and darkness. The mountain was high and the emperor was far away. Light and darkness were like two emperors. With Chu Yang's current cultivation, he was far away from the emperor. When the emperor's soldiers, angels and demons appeared for him to use, their power would naturally increase greatly. Chapter 1057. The reason why Chu Yang sorted out the divine demon was that he planned to do a deduction after straightening it out. He wanted to use the divine demon martial soul to hide his Eastern Wilderness aura. People from the Eastern Wilderness were targeted too much in the East continent. In the Seven-Wheel Demon realm, people like him were more likely to be attacked. Even divine demons will hide their aura when they walk in the human world. This is the same reason why I hide my Eastern Wilderness aura. There's nothing to hurt my self-esteem. When the parrot heard Chu Yang's words, it curled its lips. What's there to be stubborn about? Chu Yang began to deduce how to hide his Eastern Wilderness aura. It was not easy. The aura of the Eastern Barren Territory was like a person's skin color. That was why people from the East continent could easily recognize people from the Eastern Barren Territory. However, it was not easy for a person to change his skin color. This was also the reason why Chu Yang was unhappy. They were all people. Why should he hide and conceal it? Chu Yang had thought of this long ago. It was not difficult for him to do it through the divine demon martial soul. However, he did not do so. This was one of the reasons. However, after being beaten up in the Sky Academy, he did not dare to be so willful in the dangerous Seven-Wheel Demon realm. Along with the deduction, Chu Yang's spiritual energy kept floating in the air. Soon, it turned into white and black snowflakes and kept rotating around him. Then, all the snowflakes changed and turned into the shape of a hexagram. At the same time, they became incomparably dazzling and then drilled into his body. Changes began to appear on his body. Rumble. Spiritual energy and blood surged like a river, rushing to the sea. All of them gathered in one place. Soon, the aura on his body fell down like falling off a cliff. His bones began to loosen, his tendons and meridians became relaxed, and his muscles began to soften. His skin, flesh, tendons, bones, organs, and so on, the power in his body faded like the tide. In the end, the shining hexagram sealed all the power in his blood, bones, meridians, and everything else. It turned into two figures, one bright and one dark, like a god and a devil, each in a hexagram. This god and demon seemed to be in their own country, and also seemed to be sealed by a peerless formation. Fiend God Breath Concealment Technique. This was a technique that Chu Yang had deduced using his godly demon martial spirit and the formation to conceal his aura. However, this was not only concealing the Eastern Barren Territory aura on Chu Yang's body, but also concealing all of his cultivation. In the depths of his Dantian's Qi Si, the two hexagrams continued to condense. In the end, the two hexagrams actually condensed to the size of a sesame seed and then completely concealed themselves. Perfect concealment, no one would be able to find out. Chu Yang's aura plummeted at this moment. His strength seemed to have completely disappeared. Right now, what he was displaying was not that of a martial artist at all, but that of an ordinary person. His current appearance could be said to be unfathomable. If anyone could figure out his background while walking in the 7 demonic realms, they would definitely dare to act rashly. However, although he had completely concealed his strength and aura, he could erupt at any time. He could erupt with his true strength in an instant. It was definitely not like other aura concealment techniques or sealing techniques, which required time to unseal. Many people chose to hide or seal their cultivation base in order to hide their strength. However, when they encountered danger, they couldn't undo the seal in time and were killed on the spot. It could be said to be incomparably tragic. Chu Yang naturally thought of such a drawback when he deduced the cultivation technique. Therefore, such a situation wouldn't occur with the godly demon aura concealment technique. As long as he willed it, all his cultivation base would return to his body in an instant. It was still overbearing and overwhelming. Chapter 1058. After that, he casually pointed at the parrot and a hexagram appeared, sinking into the parrot's body. The Eastern Barren Territory's aura was perfectly concealed, but the parrot's cultivation was not sealed. Chu Yang needed the parrot to tell others that he was unfathomable. Although he seemed to have no cultivation, he was very likely to be an expert. The celestial demon breath concealment technique doesn't sound domineering enough. How can the cultivation method I deduced not be awe-inspiring? Chu Yang muttered, stroking his chin. The parrot squinted its eyes and despised him. With your talent in naming, I'm worried about your future children. Celestial demon walking technique, what do you think? Chu Yang said. It seemed to be a question, but he laughed and said, let's call it the celestial demon walking technique. The parrot almost burst into tears. Chu Yang's naming skills have finally improved a little. It's a pity that he didn't name it at the right time. Perhaps it wouldn't have been called Little Cheap if it had been a little earlier. The dark night passed in the blink of an eye as they cultivated. The next day, when the sun was high in the sky, Chu Yang and the parrot no longer hid, but they were still cautious and began to go deeper into the 7 Wheels demon realm. Soon, they saw the ruins of a palace. Rather than calling it a palace, it would be better to call it a ruin. Almost all the buildings had collapsed, and only a few walls were still standing. The walls were mottled, and there were thick traces of time on them. This should be the location of the ancient devil sect, but this is only the edge of the 7 Wheels demon realm. That is to say, when the demonic corpse fell, it only affected the ancient devil sect and completely destroyed it. Hiss! Chu Yang could not help but gasp. This demonic corpse was too terrifying. The ancient devil sect that ruled the East continent was terrifying. It was definitely not something the Sky Academy could compare with, but it was destroyed just like that. The devil chi was getting thicker and thicker. The further they went, the more people there were. Originally, not many people could be seen, but the crowd here was actually bustling and clamorous. This made Chu Yang very surprised. Looking ahead, at the very center of the ruins, there was a huge stone tablet that pierced into the sky. The stone tablet emitted a faint light. What a huge stone tablet! When Chu Yang saw this stone tablet, his mind couldn't help but tremble. This stone tablet was as majestic as a mountain. He didn't know how tall it was, but it seemed to be 10,000 zhang tall, piercing through the clouds like a heavenly pillar. With the parrot in tow, he hurried over. He didn't really understand what was going on, so he immediately asked someone for advice. "What is that steel? What is it used for?" None of the people asked could tell that Chu Yang came from the eastern wilderness. They even realized that Chu Yang didn't seem to have any cultivation base. Their eyes immediately narrowed. There must be something fishy going on. How could a person without any cultivation dare to enter the Seven Wheels demonic domain? In fact, this person quickly realized that the parrot on Chu Yang's shoulder had an extraordinary cultivation base. He immediately said, "This is a stone tablet left behind by the ancient devil sect. It is used to test the disciples of the sect. It can test a person's talent, potential, battle strength, and so on." As he spoke, the person raised his head and pointed at the top of the stone tablet. "Do you see that? There is a dazzling light up there. It is the name of many famous people in the East Continent since ancient times." Chu Yang looked up and saw that the top of the stone tablet was divided into several sections. There was only one name at the top. He immediately asked, "Who is Mo Dingtian?" Mo Dingtian, the most famous genius of the ancient devil sect. He was also the last sect master of the ancient devil sect, someone said. Chu Yang narrowed his eyes and said again, "How long has it been? How can we not surpass Mo Dingtian? Isn't our East Continent too weak? What do you know? The ancient devil sect is amazing." Chu Yang was immediately refuted by a group of people. He didn't refute and carefully read the names on the stone tablet one by one. Then, his pupils constricted. Qian Zi. Below the name Mo Dingtian, after 3 or 4 names, Chu Yang suddenly saw a familiar name. It was Qian Zi, whom he had met in the eastern wasteland. This Qian Zi seems to be very strong, Chu Yang thought. Next to the name Qian Zi was another name, Jing Wuming. Further down, Eastern Wilderness, Sima Jian. He quickly saw these names. However, Sima Jian's name was not in the first tier, but in the second tier. Li Chongqing, the sage master of the Sky Academy, ranked above them. Then, Chu Yang saw the name Gongsun Liang. What rank can I be on the stone tablet? Chapter 1059. Look, the names of all the giants of the East Continent are at the top. Some of them are still alive today. If you can leave your name on it, it'll shake the world. If you have the ability to leave your name on it, everyone in the East Continent will know about it. More and more people gathered, and the discussions grew more and more heated. Many people were already getting excited at the thought of being able to compete with so many paramount names. Who didn't want to become famous in one fell swoop? And this was a very good opportunity to do so. Chu Yang looked at the dazzling names. They were as dazzling as the sun. However, he restrained himself. If he unleashed his power, the Eastern Barren Territory's aura would definitely erupt. At that time, no one would know what would happen. Can anyone take the test here? Won't it be dangerous? Suddenly, a youth around 15 or 16 years old spoke. He was already at the soul amalgamation realm, and he asked a seemingly stupid question with a bit of shyness. His face turned red as soon as he spoke. There was an old man beside him, and there were people guarding him. He was either a disciple of a big family or a disciple of a big power. Of course you can. There won't be any danger, and anyone can test their own talents. A middle-aged man spoke, extremely humble. Obviously, he knew the identity of the youth. The ancient monument stood tall, sparkling and translucent. Even more youngsters were eager to give it a try. They all wanted to leave their names on the monument, to see how high their rankings were, and whether or not they would be able to blossom with resplendent light. "Move aside, I'll try." A young man in his 20s walked forward. Then, his whole body erupted with incomparably dazzling light, and even his whole body became sparkling and translucent. Tap, tap, tap. He walked toward the monument, his footsteps becoming heavier and heavier. When the ground under his feet was about to collapse, a burst of light immediately erupted from the ground. The young man wanted to test himself and leave his name on the monument, so he didn't hold back. He used all his battle strength and attacked the monument with all his strength. The monument didn't move at all. The young man was like an ant trying to shake a mountain. However, a rain of light erupted from the monument, sprinkling down like dancing petals, making the monument seem even more mysterious and supreme. "How is it? What's my rank?" The young man punched out, and then he immediately retreated, raising his head to look at the monument. His face was shining, carrying great hope, but at the same time, he was a bit nervous. He kept looking for his name on the shiny stone tablet. However, when he looked down from the top, he looked again and again, but he did not find anything. This caused him to be stunned on the spot. "I didn't see it. Your name isn't on it." The others were naturally concerned as well. After confirming it again and again, they finally spoke. None of them had weak mental strength, so they wouldn't miss anything if they searched carefully. Moreover, it would take them a lot of time to look through all the words on the stone tablet. Has this ancient devil sex stone tablet existed for too long? It has already appeared. Otherwise, why hasn't my name appeared? The young man couldn't believe this scene. He was very confident in himself, but the result was very cruel. Ha ha! Among the crowd, many people immediately burst into laughter. Some older cultivators explained, "The ancient devil sect doesn't have high requirements for their disciples. Without great talent, it's impossible to leave your name on the monument. Therefore, not everyone has the ability to leave their name on the monument." When the young man heard this, his face immediately turned red. He gritted his teeth hatefully. He actually didn't have the qualifications to leave his name on the monument. Chapter 1060. Humph, don't be ridiculous. Who do you think you are? A peerless genius? It was unknown how many years it would take for someone to leave their name on the stone tablet. Anyone who can leave their name on it is an earth-shattering genius. That's right. Among the 6 great academies of the East Continent, 3 of them are unable to leave their names on the stone tablet. Even the 6 great academies' headmasters were unable to leave their names on it. The youth was stunned. This was too shocking, but he immediately felt much better and was no longer ashamed. Chu Yang was also shocked. This was a bit ridiculous. Since the ancient demonic sect was destroyed, countless years have passed. How many people in the East Continent have been able to leave their names on it? When Chu Yang heard this, he immediately calculated in his heart. He immediately felt that it was a bit frightening. Those who could leave their names on the stone tablet were indeed extraordinary. Qian Zi and Gong Sunliang were both on it, which made him feel a lot of pressure. It's not just the East Continent. Many people from the Central Continent and other continents have also come here to take the test. The heavenly spirit world was very big. The East Continent was only one continent, but it was said that there were 3,000 continents in the heavenly spirit world. The East Continent was the most eastern continent, which was why it was called the East Continent. There were also the West Continent, the South Continent, and the North Continent. The Central Continent was at the center of the heavenly spirit world. The youths who were originally eager to give it a try were shocked. They even felt a bit suffocated. Countless years had passed, but the names on the stone tablet could still be counted clearly. There were definitely no more than 3,000 names. Looking at it again, the youths present were even more solemn. The East Continent and other continents had accumulated since ancient times, but there were only a few names on it. In other words, those who could leave their names on it were definitely extraordinary geniuses. The higher the ranking, the more astonishing and unimaginable it was. "I'll give it a try too." A golden-haired man wearing a layer of golden armor stepped forward. He was handsome and could be said to be a handsome man. At the same time, He was also full of confidence. He used all his strength and punched at the stone tablet. There was a rumbling sound. There was an explosion and a gale swept out. The light was dazzling, as if a small sun had risen there. Many people quickly retreated, because they felt the golden-haired man's boundless might. The terrifying fluctuations were likely to affect them. It was certain that this golden-haired man was extremely outstanding. Although he was only at the soul fusion realm, he was able to release an incomparably shocking wave of energy. However, when everything was over and the light dispersed, the golden-haired man did not see his name at all when he looked up at the stone tablet. There were no changes to how the stone tablet was before and how it was now. This, everyone present was speechless. A person like the golden-haired man was actually unable to leave his name on the stone tablet? Many people couldn't believe it and immediately questioned, could it be that this stone tablet can only test devils, so we are like this? It's ridiculous. Is the current #1 genius of the Sky Academy, Qianzi, also a devil? Jing Wuming from the Heavenly Demon Academy is a devil, but he is only on par with Qianzi. Qianzi was actually from the Sky Court. Chu Yang was surprised. His opponent in the Sky Academy was a little fierce. Maybe the way you test is wrong. The stone tablet has a different way of testing. What you did just now only tested your combat strength, but it didn't reflect your talent. In fact, combat strength and talent did not conflict. The stronger the talent, the higher the combat strength. The stone tablet would give a comprehensive ranking according to the tester's realm. However, some people comforted themselves or were unwilling to accept the result, so they chose a different testing method, the blood test. The blood test was very simple. It used the blood as a basis to detect a person's bloodline, comprehension, talent, and so on. However, the result was no different. He also failed to leave his name on the stone tablet. Chapter 1061. After that, more and more people tried, but they were all defeated. They thought they were geniuses, but in the end they found that they were nothing. Young master, don't be discouraged. You're comparing yourself with countless geniuses in the East Continent since ancient times. If you can really leave your name, everyone in the East Continent will know about you. An old servant comforted his young master. Many of the young people felt slightly better when they heard this. After all, they dared to enter a dangerous place like the Seven Wheels Demon Realm. They were all proud people. Whoosh! Suddenly, a figure came from afar and approached them in an instant. Get out of the way! The voice was cold and sharp. It was like a sharp sword that pierced into everyone's ears. Who are you? Some people were dissatisfied, but when they saw who it was, they immediately shut their mouths. Their eyes were filled with horror. The person who'd arrived wore white clothes. His figure was ramrod straight, and he was like a divine sword that pierced the sky as if he intended to break through the 9 heavens. His entire body emanated an extremely fierce and powerful sword chi that caused no one to dare approach him. This person was at the peak of LV9 Soul Amalgamation Realm, but his aura was extremely frightening. Heaven Sword Academy, Tyrannical Sword Feng Polong. Someone exclaimed, revealing the origin of this person. Feng Polong's eyebrows were like swords, and his body was like a divine sword. He seemed to be extremely sharp. The aura emitted from his body seemed to be able to cut the void around him into pieces. Chi. Feng Polong pointed his finger and a wisp of sword chi immediately shot onto the stone tablet. Suddenly, the stone tablet shone brightly. Then, a space appeared in front of the two names, Qianzi and Jing Wuming. Feng Polong raised his head and glanced at it. He didn't seem very satisfied, but he raised his hand and left his name on it. Then, he disappeared in an instant. At this time, the crowd was in an uproar. Gosh, Feng Polong is actually on the same level as Qianzi and Jing Wuming. Another peerless genius in the East Continent. Feng Polong from the Sky Academy will be famous in the East Continent after today. Everyone will know him. Buzz buzz buzz. The stone steel trembled slightly. Immediately, the three words Feng Polong appeared on the stone steel like three suns in the sky, illuminating the entire Eastern Continent. In an instant, the entire East Continent shook as many powerful consciousnesses descended. It could be said that he became famous overnight and the whole world knew about it. Because of Feng Polong, many young people became excited again. Not only did some people try, but all of them failed. Among the many people, there was only a delicate and pretty girl who left her name at the second-to-last position on the stone tablet. At this point, the people present no longer had any doubts about the stone tablet. They were completely convinced. There was nothing wrong with the stone tablet. It was just that they were too weak. Therefore, when they looked at the names on the stone tablet, they immediately revealed looks of awe. They were all unreachable, peerless geniuses. Since ancient times, the magnificent writings written by all the geniuses in the Eastern Continent were incomparably dazzling, so dazzling that it made people worship them. In particular, when they saw the names of Qianzi, Jing Wuming, and Feng Polong, many people were shocked. These three people lived in the same world as them and would definitely control the East Continent in the future. The more they knew, the more they realized how big the gap was between them and Qianzi and the rest. They were even more in awe of these three people. The Sky Academy, Heavenly Demon Academy, and Heavenly Sword Academy all have geniuses who left their names on the stone tablets. I wonder if the Star Academy, Myriad Academy, and Divine Firmament Academy have such geniuses. If there are, the East Continent will be prosperous. These exclamations were unpleasant to the ears of the young people present. Prosperous, my ass. At the same time, they felt bitter. At first, they yearned to be outstanding, but now they felt depressed. Looking at the names on the stone tablet, they felt as if they were facing an immortal legend. They were very disheartened. Chapter 1062. Is there no one else who wants to try? Many people had gathered, but most of them had failed the test. Suddenly, no one dared to take the test. Many of them didn't want to hurt their confidence, so they didn't take the test. Brother, why don't you try? The person next to Chu Yang suddenly asked Chu Yang. This person felt that Chu Yang was unfathomable, so he spoke up. As soon as he spoke, Chu Yang immediately attracted the attention of many people. Many people couldn't help but exclaim. The parrot squinted and felt that Chu Yang was attracting criticism. Disaster is falling from the sky. That's right. Brother, you've restrained your aura. I'm afraid you're extraordinary. Give it a try. If you leave your name on the stone tablet, it will shake the East Continent. That's right. I think you're definitely not an ordinary person. After Chu Yang felt disdain in his heart, he immediately boasted shamelessly. Do I need to take the test? I'm the #1 person in the East Continent. I'm a godly martial artist. Who can compare to me? He believed that he could leave his name on it. Ha! Immediately, there was a burst of laughter. If you're a godly martial artist, why don't you dare to try? Chu Yang directly left without refuting. If he took the test, he would be exposed. Pfft, he doesn't even have the courage to take the test. What a joke. His face is as thick as a city wall, but he knows his place. He knows it's embarrassing, so he simply didn't take the test to avoid being laughed at. Many people laughed at him, and then no one paid attention to him. After that, many people went to take the test, and a few people successfully left their names on the stone tablet. After a while, the crowd slowly dispersed and entered the Seven Wheels demonic realm to search for the great fortune. After an unknown period of time, this place finally became tranquil. There was no one left. At this time, Chu Yang appeared again. Let's see how I do. I shouldn't be worse than anyone, right? Chu Yang muttered to himself. He had the divine demon martial spirit, so he felt that he was definitely not inferior to Qianzi, Jing Wuming, and Feng Polong. He was even a little worried that if he were to cause too much of a commotion, he would be tracked down by others. That wouldn't be good. He didn't want his secrets to be dug out by others, but he also wanted to know who was stronger between him and Qianzi. Chu Yang hesitantly stroked his chin. He paced back and forth in front of the steel, thinking. In the end, he raised his hand and shot a 5-colored divine light directly into the steel. 5-colored divine light. This shouldn't be a problem, right? The ranking shouldn't be too ridiculous, but it should be able to leave its name. After all, it's a 5-colored divine light, 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 divine light. He kept muttering to himself. He didn't explode with his true battle prowess, and he wouldn't test it with his blood. He was worried that he would leave traces of himself on the stone tablet. With a boom, Chu Yang suddenly felt the sky shake and the earth shake. He almost couldn't stand still and was sent flying. Immediately, he screamed. The commotion was too big, and it was different from what he had expected. What's wrong with this stone tablet? Just now, the other testers attacked it so fiercely, but it didn't move at all. I just shot a 5-colored divine light and you rebelled. Stone tablet, you have something against me. The parrot despised Chu Yang's hypocrisy in its heart. At this time, the entire steel lit up and emitted endless light. The commotion was too big. Chu Yang quickly left his name and ran for his life. Rumble! In an instant, resplendent divine light overflowed into the heavens. Thunder suddenly rumbled in the heavens, as if the ancient monolith was shaking together. The sound of the great Tao also rumbled. Divine flowers descended from the sky one after another. Endless divine light submerged this place. What happened? The 7 Wheels demon realm was shaken. At this moment, everyone couldn't help but look at the steel. They were shocked to see a strange phenomenon at the top of the steel. A peerless figure appeared on it, overlooking the East continent. Damn it! I just left, and someone made such a big commotion. Those who had just left rushed back. Everyone behind them was dumbfounded. First place on the stone tablet. Oh my God! How is it possible? Someone's name is above Mo Dingtian? Who is this person? Chapter 1063. Heavenly Martial Genius, Handsome, Good Life. The people who had rushed to the vicinity suddenly saw these 8 words. Originally, they were all exclaiming loudly and feeling incomparably shocked. However, when they saw these 8 words that were incomparably dazzling and eye-catching, they suddenly stiffened and became silent. For such a person, the title of heaven-warping martial genius was indeed fitting, but the following handsome and living well had to be reconsidered. Handsome was not a problem, the key was the 2 words living well. These 2 words seemed to have an indescribable magical power. They seemed to contain some kind of profound great Tao of heaven and earth, so much so that the first batch of people who rushed over fell into some kind of epiphany. Good life. These 2 words were extremely profound. Ordinary people could not easily comprehend them. Messy, many people were a little messy. Such a miracle, yet these 8 words were used to express its brilliance. At the divine monument, suddenly, there was only the sound of the divine monument resonating. It trembled slightly and emitted a buzzing sound. As for the people further away, they were all in a daze. They looked at the divine monument from afar and saw that the top of the divine monument was gorgeous. Heavenly flowers fell down, and bright divine light enveloped the world. There, it was as if 8 great suns were hanging in the sky. The person who left his name on the divine monument was obviously incomparably shocking. The divine monument released such a dazzling light that it illuminated the 7 demonic realms covered in demonic energy, The person who left his name on the divine monument suppressed many of the names that shook the East continent. Who is this person? He came first and suppressed the demon sovereign. This is simply inconceivable. This is really a shocking appearance. Such a heaven-defying person suddenly appeared. It is destined to shake the world. Many people's eyes were stinging because the divine monument's light was too bright. Without a doubt, the divine monument that had been silent for countless years had been completely changed. Today, someone changed history and replaced the ancient demon sex Mo Dingtian as the number one. He looked down on the East continent. This was the new supreme being. The changes on the divine monument did not stop. It was still changing. The name left on it was constantly changing. The light it released, compared to the other names on the divine monument, was really like the sun in the sky. It was extremely resplendent. Accompanied by the changes of the name, the divine monument suddenly shone and became transparent. It even emitted flames. Divine flames surged, rushing into the heavens. The divine monument continuously resonated with it, unexpectedly unable to calm down even after a long time had passed. There was always a type of heavenly Tao energy swirling about there. At this moment, the divine steel completely awakened. I've heard that even if a giant-level character were to reach an extremely high level of cultivation, they would still not be able to completely awaken this divine monument. However, it is actually rumbling right now. It is simply hard to imagine how heaven-defying this new character is. That person's name changed, turning into 5 human figures, engraved on the divine steel. These 5 figures are of different colors, and they are shrouded in primal chaos chi. Green, yellow, red, black, white, what do these 5 colors represent? After waiting for a long time, people waited for the auspicious light that filled the sky to recede and for the flower of heavenly Tao to dissipate. Only then did they truly and thoroughly see what was left behind on the divine steel. At this moment, on the divine steel, there was only one spot that was incomparably resplendent. It was high up in the air, as though it was the only supreme existence. How can a person's name appear on the divine steel as 5 figures? Does this mean anything? Green, yellow, red, black, white, could they be the 5 elements? Chapter 1064. The 5 figures couldn't be seen clearly at all, as if they were 5 celestial venerables in the midst of chaos and haze. Everyone looked at the 5 figures, and the 5 figures seemed to be looking at them as well. However, it was as if 5 gods were looking at them from the heavens. They sat cross-legged on the divine monument, looking even more mysterious and noble. When the 5 figures were completely engraved on the divine steel, they could clearly see the extremely simple shape. It was just a simple outline of a human figure, and the lines used were extremely few, but the trajectory of the lines seemed to be the trajectory of the heavenly Tao. In addition, there was another thing that shocked everyone. Not only were the 5 figures sitting high above Mo Dingtian, but there was also a large gap between the two. Between the two, there was a huge gap. Everyone was shocked again. Didn't this mean that this person's talent far surpassed Mo Dingtian's? Mo Dingtian's name was at the top of the divine monument, occupying the first position. No one in the East continent had been able to surpass him for a long time, but today, not only did someone surpass him, but they also left Mo Dingtian far behind. Who is this? How dare he surpass the demon lord? The people who spoke were from the Myriad Demon sect. It was said that the Myriad Demon sect was established by the survivors of the ancient demon sect, and Mo Dingtian was actually their ancestor. The Myriad Demon sect had always been proud of this and looked down on the 6 great academies of the East continent. Therefore, when they saw this scene, they were all furious. Too arrogant, too presumptuous. We are demons. It's good enough that we don't provoke others, but someone actually dares to provoke us. Not only the Myriad Demon sect, but also many demons in the East Continent couldn't bear it. This person had appeared out of nowhere, and was sitting cross-legged above Mo Dingtian, as if he was suppressing Mo Dingtian. In the eyes of many demons, this was tantamount to suppressing the demonic path. If this was confirmed, there might be a demon purging storm in the East Continent. Ridiculous. This person must die. A demon roared. His eyes were gloomy and filled with boundless anger. Many people retreated, not wanting to be affected. However, even more people were secretly laughing. From today onwards, the demons of the devil sect would probably never be arrogant again. Haha, heaven-blessed martial artists, handsome people live well. Suddenly, a demon laughed. I think this should be someone from our devil sect, unrestrained and unafraid of rumors. Haha, that's right, that must be the case. Many of the demons, who were originally furious, burst into laughter upon hearing this. The sudden change made the righteous faction members stupefied. This was really possible. If he was a decent person, who would leave behind such an indecent name? One had to know that this name would be passed down through the ages. The Demon Lord has appeared and unified the East Continent. The Demon Lord has appeared and unified the East Continent. The Demon Lord has appeared and unified the East Continent. There was no way to confirm it, but the probability was very high. As such, everyone from the devil sect was extremely excited and cheered loudly. In the distance, even more people were rushing over. They had already seen the strange phenomenon of the divine monument. Even from 100 li away, they could see its boundless radiance illuminating the entire eastern continent. When they arrived, many people were immediately stupefied. The rankings on the divine monument were just as they thought, truly being changed. Today, in the eastern continent, there was actually someone who had broken through the innumerable years of changing the ranking list, becoming an unparalleled legend. It was just a name, but it made people feel incomparably speechless. Heaven-warping martial prowess, handsome, living a good life, what was this? As for the demons, because of this, they concluded that this person was also a demon, but not many people acknowledged him. Being unrestrained did not necessarily mean that one was a demon. However, no matter what, this person would definitely become the focus of everyone's discussion. They believed that the entire eastern continent would definitely be shaken, and countless people would rush here. The 6 great academies would definitely not be able to sit still and would definitely come here to take a look. Chapter 1065. The divine steel was in an uproar. Everyone knew what this meant. The appearance of such a person would have a profound impact on the East Continent. Chu Yang heard all the commotion in front of the divine steel. His mouth was crooked from laughing. This young master was actually so powerful. At the same time, he also had a thought. Didn't the people of the East Continent discriminate against the Eastern Wilderness? If he wrote the words, Eastern Wilderness, on the divine steel, he would be high and mighty, suppressing all the people of the East Continent throughout history. Would the people of the East Continent be so cocky? This is feasible. Chu Yang pondered for a while. He had only used the 5 elements' divine powers just now. Of the path of heaven span and the reincarnation divine ability, the 5 phases divine abilities were the weakest. Therefore, if he were to test them out, he would definitely be shocked. In addition, if it was just one person suppressing the demon venerable, the entire East Continent would be mobilized to investigate and he might be found out. Let's do it. This young master is going to stir up the East Continent. If people knew he was planning this, they would definitely be shocked to the ground. Master, can you be more careful? Others would act like a stunned bird or cry out in surprise. It's not appropriate for you to do this. When the parrot saw Chu Yang's cheap smile, it knew that Chu Yang was definitely up to no good. Therefore, it was very opposed to this. The 7 wheels demonic area was dangerous enough. Don't poke a hornet's nest for no reason. That move just now had almost caused trouble. Little bastard, go leave your name on the divine steel later. If you can't leave your name on it, you're also a piece of trash. There's no point in keeping you. Just roast and eat. The parrot really wanted to kill someone. Was this reminder a crime? A fine bird was actually being retaliated against like this. Chu Yang left the crowd with a smile on his face. He didn't go into the depths of the Seven Wheels demonic area for the time being. He would do something big at night. He vowed to make the East Continent sleepless and suffer. The people of the Eastern Wilderness were regarded as wild dogs by the East Continent. If someone from the Eastern Wilderness rode on their heads, what kind of expression would they have? I'm really looking forward to it. After Chu Yang left, the commotion became more and more intense. The 7 rounds of the demonic domain's divine steels had completely exploded, and everyone was looking at them. Moreover, the incident was still fermenting and stirring up great waves. In the end, it really shocked the entire East Continent and even the neighboring states of the East Continent. Because of this matter, countless people rushed to the Seven Wheels demonic area to see what was going on. Since ancient times in the East Continent, no one had been able to shake the rankings on the 7 rounds of the demon domain's divine steel. Now, it had been completely rewritten by someone. For a period of time, the phrase heaven-defying martial prowess, handsome, and good life was widely circulated, making people not know whether to laugh or cry. Many people sucked in a breath of cold air when they arrived. They stood in front of the divine monolith and raised their heads to stare at the 5 engravings. He really made history by suppressing the demon's sovereign. That's right. He really suppressed the demon lord and became the strongest person in the East Continent. Haha, you're really a heaven-defying martial artist. You're handsome and live well. As expected of a member of our generation, a role model for our generation. These were a few unrestrained but extremely talented young people. They stood in front of the divine monolith in a daze for a while. Then, they laughed so hard that tears almost flowed out of their eyes. Good fellow, he's really powerful. I wonder if he's from the Myriad Demons sect or the 6 great academies. Amazing, he's appeared out of nowhere. In front of the divine monolith, groups of people came. They were all amazed. Many powerful people even gave orders to find this person at all costs. It was just that the 7 Wheels demon region was a chaotic and dangerous place. It was easier said than done to find the person he was looking for. Chapter 1066. Night Compassion. Night Longing. Night Remembrance. The night was full of silence. There was no endless compassion, endless longing, or endless nostalgia in the 7 Wheels demon territory. There was only endless darkness in the night. Chu Yang took the parrot and waited until night fell. He immediately sneaked to the front of the divine steel and checked the surroundings with his divine sense. At this moment there was dead silence. There was no noise in the daytime. It was as if everything had been drowned by the night. I can work now. Chu Yang raised his hand and applied the power of the path to heaven to the divine steel. In an instant, a dazzling white light appeared and the night disappeared. The divine steel shook and buzzed, erupting with endless light. A dazzling area appeared in the position parallel to the words, Heavenly Martial Genius, Handsome, Good Life. When Chu Yang saw this, his eyes widened. This was completely different from what he had deduced. The 5-colored divine light was just started, and its power was weak. It was completely inferior to the path to heaven. According to the deduction, the path to heaven should surpass the 5-colored divine light, and the ranking should surpass the words, Heavenly Martial Genius, Handsome, Good Life. However, the result was completely different from the deduction. This won't do. It must surpass the words, Heavenly Martial Genius, Handsome, Good Life. Otherwise, how can it suppress the East Continent? Chu Yang immediately applied the reincarnation technique, but the result was the same. The ranking was tied in the same line. Where did this come from? He was very depressed. He was ready to do something big and make the East Continent sleepless tonight. He wanted to make all the people who discriminated against the Eastern Wilderness suffer. However, he directly screwed up when he started. Master, hurry up. If you're discovered, you're finished. The parrot cried. Chu Yang could only write Eastern Wilderness 001 and Eastern Wilderness 002, and then left quickly. Boom! The divine steel exploded and endless light burst out. In an instant, the pitch-black Seven Wheels demon territory was illuminated. It was even brighter than daytime. In an instant, the people in the Seven Wheels demon territory were immediately alarmed. The Seven Wheels city was alarmed. The area within 100 miles of the Seven Wheels demonic realm was also completely shocked. Then, the entire East Continent was completely shaken. Eastern Wilderness 001 and Eastern Wilderness 002 are actually on par with Heaven-Blessed, Handsome, and Good Life. In the darkness of the night, someone immediately screamed, Eastern Wilderness 001, Eastern Wilderness 002. Isn't that the wild dog? Someone immediately realized this and shouted angrily. How can Wild Dog and Heavenly Martial Genius, Handsome and Good Life, be ranked side by side and suppress the Demon Lord? Many people in the East Continent could not accept it. Impossible, this is impossible. If the Wild Dog can suppress the Demon Venerable, then our East Continent will become a joke. Without comparison, there would be no harm. Many people in the East Continent were going crazy. When Chu Yang heard a lot of anger and curses, he could not help but secretly grit his teeth and say, Damn it, this young master will definitely make all of you bastards suffer. The East Continent was shaken again. Chu Yang's goal had been achieved in the East Continent tonight, but he did not have the slightest sense of accomplishment. He just wanted to slap himself in the face for messing up such a simple thing. He could only wait for the next night. On the second night, no one was waiting at the Divine Steel. After all, who would have thought that there was such an anomaly like Chu Yang? It was difficult enough to leave one's name on the Divine Steel, but he was only one person, and he could do it twice or thrice. It's best not to reveal the celestial demon martial soul. Chu Yang did not have many trump cards to surpass the three divine abilities. Of course, he did not want to use the celestial demon martial soul. After all, the three divine abilities were engraved on the divine steel with a lot of hidden information. He could see at a glance that it represented the three divine abilities. It's the Origin Martial Soul Third Transformation, the Chi Soul Third Transformation, and the Ascending Soul Third Transformation. After saying this, Chu Yang hesitated again. The reason for this was because he had made a mistake in his previous deduction. If he made another mistake this time, he would have to use the Celestial Demon Martial Soul. Chapter 1067. The Divine Steel shook and shone brightly. He immediately raised his head and saw that the rankings were still side by side. He immediately scolded, You stupid divine monument, are you sick? My deductions have never been wrong, but you've already been wrong twice. I'm going to fucking cross hashtag %yen hashtag. He quickly left his name on the Divine Steel, Eastern Wilderness 003, and fled. The East Continent was shaken again. Once again, no one could sleep. When the people of the East Continent arrived, they saw a name on the Divine Steel. It was on par with Heaven-Blessed, Handsome, Good Life, Eastern Wilderness 001, and Eastern Wilderness 002. They couldn't help but be shocked. Eastern Wilderness 003. However, upon seeing these words, the entire East Continent seemed to have blacked out and collapsed. The East continent shook once again, and this time, it was more violent than any of the previous times. Eastern Wilderness 003? Why is it Wild Dog again? Wild Dog suppressed the Archfiend. How can the people of the East continent hide their faces? Is there no one else in the East continent? If Wild Dog can suppress the Archfiend, why can't we? Humiliation, a great humiliation! Since ancient times, no one in the East continent has been able to suppress the Archfiend. However, Wild Dog easily suppressed the Archfiend for 2 days in a row. The East continent was in an uproar. It was suffocating. After dawn, the people of the East continent went to the 6 great academies of the East continent and asked them to send their students for the test. Most of them said the same thing. The Gongsun family was the most agitated. They said that if Wild Dog could do it, the East continent could do it too. Sima Jian appeared and killed everyone from the Gongsun family, which angered the people of the East continent. Many powerful people came out. The head of the Gongsun family, Gongsun Quang, showed up. Sima Jian was surrounded and almost killed. In the end, he escaped by threatening to release the seal. It was the 3rd night. Still, no one was waiting in front of the divine steel. The people of the East continent didn't believe that anyone in the Eastern wilderness could leave their names on the divine steel. There were already 3 names, so it was impossible for a 4th to appear. Damn the Gongsun family. If I don't destroy them, I'll be your son. Chu Yang, of course, heard about the Sky Academy. After all, it was a big matter. He cursed in front of the divine steel for a while. Let's try this. If it doesn't work, they'll be alarmed. I can only go to the 7 Wheels Demon region and make a round. If I can't get anything heaven-defying, I'll use Godfiends to make everyone in the East continent lose their temper. Boom! Chu Yang used the Flood Dragon Martial Spirit and the Saber Martial Spirit to attack the steel. The Dragon Martial Soul and the Saber Martial Soul weren't his martial souls. They were created by him. According to his deduction, they should be ranked high on the divine steel. After all, a martial soul that could be created was more powerful than the 3 divine abilities. At the same time, the parrot was also bombarding the divine monument. It would be impossible for it to be roasted if it couldn't handle it. But Chu Yang was in a violent rage. He was incomparably crazy. So, it was estimated that Chu Yang would strip it of all its feathers. Therefore, it was willing to risk its life. Boom! Chu Yang and the parrot attacked at the same time. In an instant, the heavens shook and the earth swayed. The divine steel shook and the earth cracked. It should be a success. It's much more powerful than before. This definitely has nothing to do with Little Scum. It must be that yours truly godly martial prowess has completely exploded. The parrot looked at him disdainfully. It's obviously related to me. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have succeeded. The 2 immediately looked at the ranking. Chu Yang saw that the glowing area on the divine steel had surpassed Eastern Wilderness 001. He was overjoyed. It worked! He quickly wrote his name. Eastern Wilderness 007. I wish you all a sleepless night again. The parrot was going to write number 1 divine bird in the world, but Chu Yang forced it to write something else. Because of Chu Yang's 2 night raids, the East continent's response was extremely fast for the 3rd time. Chu Yang and the parrot had no time to escape. They immediately changed directions and flew towards the divine monolith at high speed to investigate the situation. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.